Li Fan transmigrated into a parallel world where everyone awakened to talent at 18. His talent was the D-rank ancient body forging inheritor, utterly weak. But he soon discovered that this talent increased attributes through training and could rise endlessly with no level limit. A first-level body rivaling the gods. It was a true cheat. Did you see the news? An epic secret realm appeared in Sakura country, and the whole nation sank into the sea. I saw it. No need to worry. They say quite a few beloved teachers survived, so the film industry should still carry on. Not bad, not bad. Actually, I've recently realized that some teachers in our great Xiao are quite good too. Enough. The awakening is about to begin. How can you still be thinking about this? On the sports field of Hangqing, no. 3 middle school students chattered noisily. What was taking place was the awakening test that every person on Blue Star had to undergo at the age of 18. Standing in the crowd, Li Fan was extremely nervous. It was not because he was the school heartthrob and the top student afraid that he might awaken a garbage talent and be laughed at. It was mainly because he was a transmigrator. As a transmigrator, if he awakened a trash talent, he would truly lose too much face. Besides, in this age of total awakening, a trash talent really did turn a person into trash. Li Fan, nervous, aren't you? You should be. At that moment, a sly voice came from his right front. He turned to look. It was his old adversary at school, Lin Yue. Lin Yue was the school belle of No. 3. She was extremely beautiful, pure, and lovely, with a devilish figure, the goddess of countless students. However, Lin Yue was the eternal second place. Since entering high school, she had always been ranked behind Li Fan, repeating as the year's runner-up. As the heiress of the Lin family, she felt humiliated. In daily life, every time Lin Yue encountered Li Fan, she had to compete. Li Fan was not one to yield easily, and he always ended up on top. Over time, the two became famous rivals. And this awakening was the best chance for Lin Yue to surpass Li Fan. I think you're the nervous one. Li Fan made a face at Lin Yue. Talent was not about background. Don't think that being born in the Lin family, the top clan in Hangqing, guaranteed a good talent. Talent was about mysticism. Besides, in terms of origin, he was a transmigrator. How terrifying. How could ordinary people compare? Lu Tao D-rank support vine bind. Wang Chen F-rank lifestyle gourmet food taster. Sun Zi B-rank combat giant axe king. The awakening ceremony began. Students went up one by one. Exclamations and sighs rose and fell. Some rejoiced, some worried. One could see that the students who had been grinning moments ago now were grim expressions. No matter how much they joked around, one never joked about talents. After awakening, the general course of one's life was basically set. Next, Lin Yue. A voice rang out. Lin Yue dashed forward impatiently and rushed onto the stage. At that moment, everyone's eyes were fixed on her. As the school's perpetual runner-up, Lin Yue's talent was highly anticipated. Soon the octagram magic circle began to glow. A dazzling blue light burst from Lin Yue's sacred. Elegant. The next second, her result was revealed. Lin Yue S-rank combat ice element divine archer. The moment the result appeared, everyone in the field couldn't help but gasp. The school leaders were so shocked that they jumped to their feet. S-rank. She's actually S-rank. Whoa. Our goddess Lin awakened an S-rank talent. Hiss. No. 3 has produced an S-rank. Indeed, Lin Yue had awakened an extremely rare S-rank combat talent. Without a doubt, she would be fought over by many martial arts universities. Many boys who had secretly admired Lin Yue couldn't help but lose the light in their eyes. The heiress of the Lin family combined with an S-rank talent. They were destined to no longer be in the same world as Lin Yue. It's actually S-rank combat. Lin Yue, looking at her own talent, was also shocked and excited. She had originally only expected an A. After all, S-rank was so rare that even in the Lin family, the top clan in Hangqing, only her grandfather had ever possessed it. The existing S-ranks in the whole city of Hang could be counted on one hand, and their ages were very spread out. She really hadn't dared to hope for S. But the fact was right before her. She just had to be happy. Then her gaze moved to Li Fan in the crowd. She refused to believe she couldn't beat Li Fan this time. Lin Yue's gaze caused a stir among the students, and they all looked at Li Fan. As the perennial top student who had always suppressed Lin Yue, they naturally had huge expectations for Li Fan. If No. 3 produced 2 S-ranks at once, it would absolutely be major news worthy of history. Li Fan was now very nervous and uneasy. Lin Yue was actually an S-rank combat talent. The pressure was really too much. He could only pray that this world would treat him, a lucky transmigrator, kindly. Li Hu F-rank lifestyle housework expert. Wang Man D-rank support knife sharpener. Fong Sen E-rank lifestyle perfect driver. Not everyone was as lucky as Lin Yue. The next wave of students largely had low-level lifestyle and support talents. It wasn't that these students were incompetent, it was just that most ordinary people's talents were like this. Soon it was finally Li Fan's class's turn. Perhaps it was arranged by the school leaders who wanted to know Li Fan's result as soon as possible. Before the students waiting in line had gone up, the leader directly called Li Fan's name. Next, Li Fan. Hearing his name, Li Fan breathed out, stepped out of the line, and walked toward the magic circle. He had actually been getting impatient. Rather than staying nervous below, it was better to find out early. When Li Fan reached the magic circle, everyone in the school looked over, and many even held their breath. If Li Fan was also S-rank, they would witness history in person. The next second the special effect appeared. An eerie purple light began to shine from Li Fan in the center of the magic circle. Then a thunderclap exploded. The entire sky over Hangsheng was darkening at a visible speed. At this moment, everyone on campus couldn't help but widen their eyes. Lin Yue was so shocked that her mouth fell open. Li Fan's awakening had actually triggered a celestial phenomenon. What kind of terrifying talent could cause such a change? The answer came after about 10 seconds. Li Fan D-rank combat, ancient body forging inheritor. The final words lingered above the magic circle, and for a moment the whole field was silent. So they had gone to fetch reinforcements. Li Fan found this utterly exasperating. These examinees had actually banded together to come and settle the score with him. Was this really necessary? At that moment another person stepped out from the group, wielding a massive hammer, and pointed at Li Fan, declaring, "You bastard! Spit out all our points." You? Before he could even finish his sentence, the mount beneath Li Fan let out a thunderous roar, startling him so much that his face turned pale, and he staggered back a few steps. It was actually a level 30 explosive tiger beast. After glancing at the crowd around him, he regained his confidence, and continued, "You've incurred everyone's wrath. Don't think you can stay in this secret realm any longer. I advise you to hand over your points token and leave on your own, and you might just avoid a beating." As he finished speaking, many in the crowd chimed in agreement. "That's right. Hand over your points and get out of the secret realm." "Exactly. Be smart and get lost. You thief. Did you hear us?" The voices grew louder, and the group's aggressive demeanor intensified. However, despite all the fierce shouting, not a single person dared to make the first move. This sight made Li Fan even more exasperated. To be honest, facing so many people at once was somewhat troublesome. But unfortunately, these people lacked unity and were not a solid force. Although they all came for revenge, each seemed to have their own reservations, otherwise at least one would have dared to act. Therefore, these people could be collectively referred to as a motley crowd. Li Fan was not in the least afraid of such a group. Fighting 100 alone was a piece of cake. Li Fan exerted a slight pressure with his legs, and the explosive tiger beast beneath him instantly let out a shocking roar. The terrifying aura brought the shouting to an abrupt halt and forced everyone to take an involuntary step back. "Folks, I think we should skip the pleasantries. If you have the guts, come and take the points. The token is right here." Li Fan then took off his points token, holding it up high, and smiled at the crowd, his eyes full of provocation. Upon hearing this, everyone was burning with anger, their faces darkening. But despite their anger, they all just exchanged hesitant glances, seemingly unwilling to be the first to stick their neck out. While they hesitated, Li Fan made his move. "Since you're not making a move, I will." As his words faded in the blink of an eye, Li Fan vanished from his spot. This sight terrified all 100 people present, their faces changing drastically. Where did he go? Not good. Where is he? Did he run away? For a moment, a frantic uproar erupted from the group, all searching for Li Fan. But by the time he reappeared in their sight, it was already too late. Because Li Fan was already right in their midst. Shing! Boom! Bang! In an instant within the crowd, Li Fan's amiable smile terrified everyone, and various attack effects went flying everywhere. However, these attacks only served to injure their own allies, posing no threat to Li Fan whatsoever. Instead, Li Fan was like a wolf among sheep, moving with incredible speed. With a kick for each, they were sent flying into the air one after another. When they landed, their points tokens had already fallen into Li Fan's hands. In no time, most of the 100+ people were thrown into disarray, each one bruised and battered. Those in slightly better condition were already scared out of their wits and fleeing. Meanwhile, Li Fan's small cloth pouch was now filled with over 100 points tokens. Tisk, you guys really have so few points." Li Fan began transferring the points. But to his annoyance, their points were pitifully low. If it weren't for the sheer quantity, he wouldn't have bothered transferring them one by one. Li Fan's words brought tears to the eyes of the bruised and battered crowd. "Damn it. Of course our points are few. Didn't you rob us all yesterday? Even when harvesting leeks, you should let them grow a bit before cutting." But then again, it wasn't like Li Fan had sought them out this time. They had brought it upon themselves. Now they were truly at a loss for tears. Why did they even provoke Li Fan, whose strength was so terrifying? Meanwhile, in the meeting room, the mentors watching this scene were all stunned. Initially, when they saw a large group going to seek revenge on Li Fan, they thought it would be an interesting spectacle. But when it came to actual combat, it was another one-sided situation. Over 100 people and not one dared to take the lead, only to be utterly defeated by Li Fan 1 against 100. If these people were to enter Beatty, they would be too ashamed to admit they were students of Beatty University. Li Fan's strength is truly off the charts. If it weren't for those sophomore brats, he would have completely ruined this assessment. Indeed, with the way Li Fan is collecting points by the third day, a third of the examinees probably won't have more than 1,000 points. Yeah, he's another Wong Tong. Having Li Fan's strength in this mix is too unfair to the other examinees. By the way, what's the situation with those sophomores now? The mentors discussed animatedly, full of mixed feelings about Li Fan. His presence was indeed affecting the balance of this assessment. The only saving grace now was that this bug, named Li Fan, could be fixed by the sophomores. And speaking of the senior students, at this moment on the outskirts of the dense forest, a massive group of figures could be seen. Damn, finally it's the second day. Finally we can make a move. Get ready. Get ready. Juniors, are you ready to meet your seniors? Damn it. Finally we can do something. Don't any of you steal those 3S ranks, they're mine. Start early, finish early. Let's go, let's go. Brothers, if you see any pretty junior girls, remember to get their contact info for me. I have a friend who needs a wife. That's right. These figures were precisely the sophomore seniors who had been waiting for a long time. After a day of waiting, they could finally formally enter the dense forest and mountains to spar with the examinees. For them, the wait had been unbearable. And shortly after the seniors entered, wails and screams began to echo from various parts of the secret realm. Senior, please spare us. We really don't have any points. Run. The seniors are here. Senior sister, you're too beautiful for fighting. How about letting us get a 1-minute head start? Run. There are seniors chasing us from behind. Arg. I'll fight you all. Senior, please show mercy. I was just joking. Damn it. I ran into the madman yesterday, and today I run into seniors the moment I open my eyes. What kind of rotten luck is this? The arrival of the sophomore seniors was like wolves entering a flock of sheep, devastating and overwhelming. Many examinees were defeated in an instant, their points reduced to 0. Before long, the dense forest was filled with fear of the senior students. This scene was well within the mentors' expectations. The strength of the sophomores was simply on another level. And this was the time to test the comprehensive abilities of the examinees. In a new environment, full of dangers, cooperation and combat were crucial skills. But the ability to flee, hide, and survive was even more important. So they had gone to fetch reinforcements. Li Fan found this utterly exasperating. These examinees had actually banded together to come and settle the score with him. Was this really necessary? At that moment, another person stepped out from the group, wielding a massive hammer, and pointed at Li Fan, declaring, "You bastard! Spit out all our points. You!" Before he could even finish his sentence, the mount beneath Li Fan let out a thunderous roar, startling him so much that his face turned pale, and he staggered back a few steps. It was actually a level 30 explosive tiger beast. After glancing at the crowd around him, he regained his confidence and continued, "You've incurred everyone's wrath. Don't think you can stay in this secret realm any longer. I advise you to hand over your points token and leave on your own, and you might just avoid a beating." As he finished speaking, many in the crowd chimed in agreement. That's right. Hand over your points and get out of the secret realm. Exactly. Be smart and get lost. You thief. Did you hear us? The voices grew louder and the group's aggressive demeanor intensified. However, despite all the fierce shouting, not a single person dared to make the first move. This sight made Li Fan even more exasperated. To be honest, facing so many people at once was somewhat troublesome. But unfortunately, these people lacked unity and were not a solid force. Although they all came for revenge, each seemed to have their own reservations, otherwise at least one would have dared to act. Therefore, these people could be collectively referred to as a motley crowd. Li Fan was not in the least afraid of such a group. Fighting 100 alone was a piece of cake. Li Fan exerted a slight pressure with his legs, and the explosive tiger beast beneath him instantly let out a shocking roar. The terrifying aura brought the shouting to an abrupt halt and forced everyone to take an involuntary step back. Folks, I think we should skip the pleasantries. If you have the guts, come and take the points. The token is right here. Li Fan then took off his points token, holding it up high, and smiled at the crowd, his eyes full of provocation. Upon hearing this, everyone was burning with anger, their faces darkening. But despite their anger, they all just exchanged hesitant glances, seemingly unwilling to be the first to stick their neck out. While they hesitated, Li Fan made his move. "Since you're not making a move, I will." As his words faded in the blink of an eye, Li Fan vanished from his spot. This sight terrified all 100 people present, their faces changing drastically. Where did he go? Not good. Where is he? Did he run away? For a moment, a frantic uproar erupted from the group, all searching for Li Fan. But by the time he reappeared in their sight, it was already too late. Because Li Fan was already right in their midst. Shing. Boom. Bang. In an instant within the crowd, Li Fan's amiable smile terrified everyone, and various attack effects went flying everywhere. However, these attacks only served to injure their own allies, posing no threat to Li Fan whatsoever. Instead, Li Fan was like a wolf among sheep, moving with incredible speed. With a kick for each, they were sent flying into the air one after another. When they landed, their points tokens had already fallen into Li Fan's hands. In no time, most of the 100+ people were thrown into disarray, each one bruised and battered. Those in slightly better condition were already scared out of their wits and fleeing. Meanwhile, Li Fan's small cloth pouch was now filled with over 100 points tokens. Tisk, you guys really have so few points. Li Fan began transferring the points. But to his annoyance, their points were pitifully low. If it weren't for the sheer quantity, he wouldn't have bothered transferring them one by one. Li Fan's words brought tears to the eyes of the bruised and battered crowd. Damn it. Of course our points are few. Didn't you rob us all yesterday? Even when harvesting leeks, you should let them grow a bit before cutting. But then again, it wasn't like Li Fan had sought them out this time. They had brought it upon themselves. Now they were truly at a loss for tears. Why did they even provoke Li Fan, whose strength was so terrifying? Meanwhile, in the meeting room, the mentors watching this scene were all stunned. Initially, when they saw a large group going to seek revenge on Li Fan, they thought it would be an interesting spectacle. But when it came to actual combat, it was another one-sided situation. Over 100 people and not one dared to take the lead, only to be utterly defeated by Li Fan 1 against 100. If these people were to enter Beatty, they would be too ashamed to admit they were students of Beatty University. Li Fan's strength is truly off the charts. If it weren't for those sophomore brats, he would have completely ruined this assessment. Indeed, with the way Li Fan is collecting points by the third day, a third of the examinees probably won't have more than 1,000 points. Yeah, he's another Wong Tong. Having Li Fan's strength in this mix is too unfair to the other examinees. By the way, what's the situation with those sophomores now? The mentors discussed, animatedly full of mixed feelings about Li Fan. His presence was indeed affecting the balance of this assessment. The only saving grace now was that this bug, named Li Fan, could be fixed by the sophomores. And speaking of the senior students, at this moment on the outskirts of the dense forest, a massive group of figures could be seen. Damn. Finally, it's the second day. Finally, we can make a move. Get ready. Get ready. Juniors, are you ready to meet your seniors? Damn it. Finally, we can do something. Don't any of you steal those 3S ranks, they're mine. Start early, finish early. Let's go, let's go. Brothers, if you see any pretty junior girls, remember to get their contact info for me. I have a friend who needs a wife. That's right. These figures were precisely the sophomore seniors who had been waiting for a long time. After a day of waiting, they could finally formally enter the dense forest and mountains to spar with the examinees. For them, the wait had been unbearable. And shortly after the seniors entered, wails and screams began to echo from various parts of the secret realm. Senior, please spare us. We really don't have any points. Run. The seniors are here. Senior sister, you're too beautiful for fighting. How about letting us get a 1-minute head start? Run. There are seniors chasing us from behind. Arg. I'll fight you all. Senior, please show mercy. I was just joking. Damn it. I ran into the madman yesterday, and today, I run into seniors the moment I open my eyes. What kind of rotten luck is this? The arrival of the sophomore seniors was like wolves entering a flock of sheep, devastating and overwhelming. Many examinees were defeated in an instant, their points reduced to 0. Before long, the dense forest was filled with fear of the senior students. This scene was well within the mentors' expectations. The strength of the sophomores was simply on another level. And this was the time to test the comprehensive abilities of the examinees. In a new environment, full of dangers, cooperation and combat were crucial skills. But the ability to flee, hide, and survive was even more important. Hearing Li Dagwa's words, Li Fan felt a surge of relief. His son even remembered to leave him some spending money. Truly his own flesh and blood. Dad, Mom, you two go and enjoy yourselves. I'll be fine. Li Fan patted Li Dagwa on the shoulder and said with a smile. Suddenly at that moment, Gu Ling's envelope accidentally slipped from his pocket. His mother Huang Lan was quick of eye and deft of hand. She snatched up the envelope in an instant, a gossipy expression blooming on her face. A few seconds passed. Li Dagwa, it's a love letter from our daughter-in-law. Look quickly. Is it from Lingling? Has that girl finally confessed? It must be Lingling. Who else could our daughter-in-law be but her? Excellent. Excellent. At this rate, we'll be holding a grandchild in our arms soon. The old couple embraced each other in excitement, beginning their celebration. Li Fan's head was spinning. So was he the only one who didn't know about Gu Ling's secret crush on him? Gu Ling had previously come to Li Fan's home for a meal. The old couple had taken a great liking to her. He never imagined they had already considered her their future daughter-in-law. Xiao Fan, you should have agreed to her confession right. Remember to treat that girl while you're here. If I ever find out you've bullied her, I'll fly back immediately and give you a beating. His mother Huang Lan was beaming with joy, beginning to lecture Li Fan. Li Dagwa on the side also chimed in. Son, your old man was a bit of a love expert in his youth. If you run into any problems, feel free to consult me. Also, since you're going to be in a relationship, you can't treat the girl poorly. I'll transfer you an extra allowance for dating in a bit. Dad, Mom, you. Li Fan was caught between laughter and tears trying to explain. But remembering that his parents were leaving for their trip tomorrow, he decided it wasn't worth the effort to explain. After a long while, the takeout arrived. During their meal, the old couple suddenly remembered that today was Li Fan's day of awakening. Son, we haven't asked about your awakened talent yet. How did it go? His father Li Dagua asked. Li Fan answered truthfully. I awakened a D-grade combat talent focused on body tempering. As soon as the words left his mouth, both his parents were momentarily stunned. However, Li Dagua then laughed and said, that's really quite rubbish, but it's fine. Your dad is even more rubbish. I only have an E-grade talent. His mother Huang Lan also nodded with relief. It's good to be rubbish. That way you won't need to be involved in fighting and killing. If you ask me, even a D-grade talent is a bit too high. Li Fan was speechless. Truly his parents were something else. Other parents hoped their children would excel, but his only hope theirs would be rubbish. However, Li Fan could understand their perspective. Everyone has their own way of living, even if it's a rubbish one. After the meal, the gnawing hunger in Li Fan's stomach had finally subsided for the most part. Next, Li Fan began his training. He first chose to do push-ups. Strength 1 a defense 1 spirit 1, strength 1 a defense 0. 8, spirit 0. 2-inch, strength 0. 8, defense 1 spirit 0. 6-inch. After only a few repetitions, the results of his training had already materialized in his mind. Witnessing this, Li Fan was truly ecstatic. The rate of improvement was even more exaggerated than he had imagined. If this pace were to continue, then it wouldn't be long before he was utterly invincible. Realizing this, Li Fan immediately threw himself into a frenzy of training. But soon Li Fan realized his thinking was a bit too idealistic. He hadn't been training for long before his stamina gave out, followed immediately by a powerful wave of hunger. Without a moment's hesitation, Li Fan sprinted out the door, found a buffet restaurant, and began to feast with gusto. Only after giving the owner a proper lesson did Li Fan finally recover. He had come to understand. If he wanted to crazily boost his attribute points, he needed his stamina and food supply to keep up. Stamina was manageable, as his physical condition gradually improved. A short rest would allow it to recover slowly. Food, on the other hand, was the real problem. His appetite just now had even startled himself. And the stronger he became, the greater his appetite would grow. He was definitely going to end up on the blacklist of every buffet restaurant. Moreover, the ordinary ingredients here would absolutely not be able to satisfy him. His family was at best moderately well off, not a very wealthy household. If he kept eating like this, he would surely eat his family into poverty. In that case, I'll have to go to a secret realm and get some beast meat. Li Fan pondered for a moment. It seemed there was only this one solution: to go into a secret realm and hunt down ferocious beasts. Not delving deeper into the matter for now, Li Fan decided to go back and get some sleep first. Boss, can I get a doggy bag for what I can't finish? The boss, you mother. Li Fan had forgotten. This was a buffet restaurant, not a regular one. Waking up from his slumber, Li Fan felt refreshed in both body and spirit. He patted his stomach and was astonished to find that his previously flat belly was now covered with 8 sharply defined abdominal muscles. He got up and stood before the mirror to inspect his current physique. Li Fan could only utter 2 words: a work of art. Indeed, although it was just simple exercise yesterday for him, it was nothing short of a rebirth. Following that, Li Fan quickly opened his status panel. Name: Li Fan. Level LV10100. Strength 387. Defense 300. Spirit 301-inch. Staring at his status panel, Li Fan was utterly stunned. It was too short. No, wait, it was too absurd. A normal level 1 awakener's strength and defense barely exceeded 30. Even those who awaken body tempering talents would never exceed 100. Yet Li Fan's stats across the board had all reached a terrifying 300 plus. As for why it was short, that couldn't be helped. It was the norm for those who awakened physical type talents. The terrifyingly high numbers made Li Fan eager to immediately start another round of frenzied training. However, recalling the situation from last night, he held himself back. I need to get some beast meat from the secret realm first. Without the support of food, his training endurance was truly lacking. He got up and went to the living room. On the dining table, there was a breakfast and a farewell note. Indeed, his parents had already set off early in the morning. Reading the words on the note, Li Fan couldn't help but smile. Seeing his parents live so happily and carefreely genuinely brought him joy. After washing up, Li Fan ate his breakfast while browsing the news. It was currently the national awakening season for high school seniors, with a level of hype similar to the college entrance exams in his past life. The news was now filled with reports on the awakening results of students across the country. Unsurprisingly, Lin Yue was featured in the news alongside an S-grade awakener from another province. And because of Lin Yue's striking good looks, her fame far surpassed that of other S-grade awakeners, with less appealing appearances spreading rapidly from Hang City to most of the Daxia nation. Apart from the awakening results, the other highly discussed topic was the beginner secret realm guides. In this world, after high school students finish their awakening, the next step is to go into these secret realms to level up, preparing for the martial arts university entrance assessment half a month later. Martial arts universities here don't have a unified exam standard. They basically all use a self-recruitment method. Take the current top university, Beta University, for example. To get into Beta University, one must meet its stipulated basic requirements, reach level 10, and have a B-grade talent. After fulfilling these, you must then participate in its examination process, and only upon passing will you be officially admitted. Of course, there are also special recruitments that don't consider talent or even level. However, these requirements are much stricter, targeting those talents that are particularly unique, unprecedented, but hold strategic significance. There was a precedent of someone with only an F-grade talent, the lowest possible, but whose ability allowed him to see inside a secret realm from the outside with his naked eye. Due to its immense strategic value, he was admitted under a special exception and given preferential treatment. As for Li Fan, he had thought about the university question last night. Although university wasn't of much use to him, it would broaden his horizons and allow him to freeload many resources. So he decided he would go. However, the martial arts university assessment was still half a month away. Before that, he'd better focus on stacking his stats as high as possible. And so Li Fan immediately began researching beginner secret realms. There are only 2 beginner instances around Hang City that level 1 awakened can enter: Wild Boar Forest and the West Coast. The Wild Boar Forest is primarily inhabited by wild boars, which are aggressive and pose a certain danger. The West Coast, on the other hand, is home to mutated sea turtles with gentle temperaments, making it relatively safer. However, wild boars have more meat. Let's go to the Wild Boar Forest. Li Fan assessed the situation objectively after checking the details, then set his course to the Wild Boar Forest. The Wild Boar Forest is a beginner instance for levels 1 to 5. It is mainly for newly awakened novices. Generally, except for those guided by their elders, most people choose to form teams. However, for Li Fan, soloing was the most cost-effective option. In truth, his level was simply too low to access higher-tier instances, though otherwise he would have considered exploring them. After a brief preparation, Li Fan had a new idea. Soon he went downstairs and purchased a camping tent along with a large set of cookware and barbecue seasonings. Indeed, he planned to stay in the Wild Boar Forest for a while. This would make it very convenient for him to train. When hungry, he could hunt a boar nearby, eat, and then continue his training. If he stayed for half a month, his stats would surely reach an incredibly exaggerated level. After tidying up his simple cookware, Li Fan shouldered his luggage and boarded the city bus heading to the Wild Boar Forest. On the bus, Li Fan, laden with bags and packages, inevitably drew the attention of many passengers. Although Li Fan wasn't exactly socially anxious, he still felt a bit embarrassed. Once I have money, I need to buy a spatial ring, Li Fan murmured to himself. This world also had spatial rings similar to those in the cultivation world. After binding one, a mere thought would connect him to a space for storing items, which was extremely convenient. Unfortunately, such items were luxuries only the wealthy could afford. Even the cheapest one cost at least $1 million. With his pockets empty, Li Fan naturally couldn't afford it. But that wasn't a big problem. As his strength grew, he could earn money in the instances. The beast cores and various materials for monsters were quite valuable. Before long, the bus arrived at the outskirts of the Wild Boar Forest. Li Fan got off and felt a sense of awe as he looked at the massive blue vortex hanging in the sky. This instant's entrance was truly spectacular, far more impressive than what he'd seen on TV. At this moment, the plaza outside was packed with a sea of people. Hey buddy, check out our martial arts university sprint class. Guaranteed to get you into Beta University. Get your Wild Boar Forest maps here cheap. Anyone want to team up? We split the loot 50-50. You students with E or F rank talents, stop struggling. Listen to Uncle's advice, go work in a factory. I know a newly opened factory, 5,000 yuan a month. It was a motley crowd with noise rising and falling. Besides the novice students needing to level up, there were also plenty of seasoned veterans from other professions. Li Fan naturally ignored all this and headed straight towards the entrance. Whoa, why is that guy carrying a tent? Is he a vagrant? But I don't think there are any vagrants that good looking. But he seems to be heading into the Wild Boar Forest. Is he planning to live inside? Damn, what a weirdo. Looks like a high schooler. Isn't he afraid of death? Nonsense. Don't his parents care about him? Indeed, Li Fan attracted a lot of attention here. Many guessed his intention, but they all thought he was being foolish. Who goes camping in an instance? Even a beginner instance has its dangers. He might get trampled by a passing herd of wild boars while sleeping. Given how young Li Fan looked, encountering a level 5 boar could be the end of him. Li Fan, however, paid no attention to the crowd's gossip. Arriving before the vortex, he stepped forward and instantly entered the instance. Looking up, he saw a different world. The sun shone brightly, the air was filled with the fresh scent of grass, and in the distance lay an endless expanse of primeval forest. Since entrants were randomly teleported to various points on the forest's edge, Li Fan didn't see anyone else around him. Taking a deep breath, he moved swiftly towards the forest. Once inside the forest, the clear sky disappeared from view, blocked by the massive branches overhead. As a result, the light within the forest was dim, giving it a rather eerie feel. Roar! Suddenly, as Li Fan stepped on and snapped a dry branch, a roar echoed from the bushes ahead. As expected, it was a wild boar lurking within. Li Fan didn't bother waiting for the boar to charge. With a thought, he activated his yin tong. In the next second, the entire bush withered instantly, turning into a pile of debris. The wild boar hidden behind was now fully exposed. Startled by the scene, the boar froze for a moment. But when it tried to react, it had already lost its life force silently and collapsed to the ground. Awesome. Li Fan couldn't help but praise himself for that performance. This was his first time using this cheat ability. It really was damn awesome. The kill efficiency was incredibly high. Next up was the taste of the wild boar forest segment. This was only a level 1 boar. Beasts of this level didn't possess a beast core, and aside from its meat, there was nothing else useful on its body. So Li Fan handled it without hesitation. In no time, a delicious barbecue was ready. Smelling the aroma, Li Fan felt he could devour a whole boar in 3 bites. Time to start training. With his belly full and energy high, Li Fan immediately began his training session. After training for what felt like a long time, the sky darkened and hunger struck again. So Li Fan had no choice but to stop for now. He opened his status panel. Name Li Fan. Level LV10. 01100. Strength 887. Defense 800. Spirit 801 inch. Li Fan was thrilled. In less than a day, his stats had increased once more. These numbers were simply too exaggerated. They were almost absurdly broken. These physical stats were comparable to many level 8 awakened. Li Fan was already looking forward to seeing the changes after half a month. As night was falling, Li Fan chose not to venture deeper into the jungle to continue hunting. Instead, he found a clearing and set up his tent. He also lit a campfire. Low-level beasts were not unlike ordinary animals, and they generally did not approach fire. With the fire burning, Li Fan could expect to get a peaceful night's sleep. Once camp was set up, he turned his attention to satiating his hunger. Within a few minutes, the carcasses of 2 wild boars were brought to the camp, becoming the guests for the second season of Tongue-Tied Boar Forest. His appetite had grown considerably. The 2 boars, each as large as a small hill, were devoured by Li Fan in no time. After eating and drinking his fill, he naturally proceeded to exercise again. This time, however, he did not train to exhaustion, conserving some of his strength. This was not out of caution against the wild boars. After all, with his current defense stat, even if a boar tried to gore him to death, it would take days to even break through his defenses. His main concern was other people. Humans were different from boars. They were far too clever. Moreover, not everyone here was a novice. There were many high-level awakened who escorted newcomers or accompanied female players. Should someone try to kill him while he slept, they had plenty of underhanded tricks at their disposal. Although he had no enemies and carried nothing of value, one could never be certain of encountering a madman who killed indiscriminately, or a show-off leveling up with a girl who on a whim might take a fancy to his tent and try to cause trouble. Keeping some strength in reserve meant he could at least open his eyes and see his attacker before they made their move. Li Fan was in luck. He slept soundly until dawn. After packing his belongings, Li Fan didn't linger and headed straight for the depths of the jungle. The outer areas were mostly populated by low-level boars. The deeper he went, the higher the boars' levels became. And for beasts, higher levels meant more energy-rich meat, which not only made leveling up easier, but also satiated hunger more effectively. He pressed onward, leaving a trail of boar carcasses in his wake. Given the sheer abundance of boars here, Li Fan had grown selective, no longer consuming whole animals, but choosing to cut out the more succulent cuts. With each kill, Li Fan slowly began to understand why his extraordinary body tempering talent had been rated as D-grade. The reason was simple: his leveling speed was abysmally slow, downright infuriatingly so. In this world, there were only a few ways to level up. One was to kill beasts in secret realms, gaining some experience points in the process, and crucially obtaining beast cores. These cores contained vast amounts of energy and could be easily absorbed. They were the primary source of leveling for humans. Aside from cores, beast meat also contained energy, though far less than that found in the cores. The second method was through supplements. Supplements were typically refined from rare materials such as spirit flowers and precious herbs. Their effects and prices varied depending on the formula and ingredients. Due to their effectiveness, convenience, and potential to save lives in critical moments, their prices were astronomical. The third method was the most ordinary, cultivating directly, drawing energy from the heavens and the earth. For most people with low-grade talents, this was naturally the least desirable option. Only those with exceptional talents like Lin Yue or Awakened who had already reached very high levels would choose this method. Back to Li Fan. He had already killed numerous boars and absorbed quite a few level 2 or higher beast cores. Yet his level remained at 1. Anyone else would have leveled up 3 or 4 times by now. By rough estimation, his leveling difficulty was tens of times higher than that of other D-grade awakened, and even significantly harder than those with the lowest F-grade talent. Given this difficulty, it was only natural his talent was classified as D-grade. But for Li Fan, it didn't seem to matter much. His cheat allowed him to easily sweep through various secret realms, so leveling up wouldn't be too slow. Soon Li Fan reached the very depths of the jungle. Earlier, he could sense many groups of novice players nearby. But here there were barely any traces of human activity. Li Fan chose a clearing by a river to set up camp. He planned to engage in a period of intense cultivation here for the next half-month. Before he knew it, 10 days had passed. The outskirts of the wild boar forest's secret realm were no longer as crowded as before. The reason was simple: most people had already set off towards their chosen martial arts universities to prepare for entrance exams. At Hangzhou City high-speed rail station. Lingling, let's go, they're checking tickets. A female voice called out, snapping Gu Ling out of her thoughts. Staring at the message box that had yet to receive a reply, Gu Ling took a deep breath and turned towards the ticket gate. Once on the train, Gu Ling stared blankly out the window, looking utterly distracted. Her companion Lu Mei frowned and spoke up. What has that Li Fan guy still not replied to your messages? That bastard, is he playing disappearing games? By the way, didn't you say he already agreed to your confession? Hearing Lu Mei's words, Gu Ling quickly responded, he must be busy with something. Lu Mei couldn't listen any longer and said, even if he's busy, there's no excuse for not replying for days. You're such a hopeless romantic. Honestly, with your looks, what kind of guy couldn't you find? Surely Fan is handsome, but he's D-grade talent. For you, he'd just be a burden. Gu Ling tuned out Lu Mei's words, silently opening her chat with Li Fan and sending a message. Brother Li Fan, I'm heading to Beizhou City. If all goes well, I should be going to Qingqiong University. The admissions office called me yesterday. Seeing Gu Ling ignore her, Lu Mei wisely stopped talking and shook her head with regret. Wild Boar Jungle. 301. 302. On the riverside clearing, Li Fan, carrying a boulder as immense as a small mountain on his back, was silently performing deep squats. Li Fan had long since discarded his shirt, revealing a torso of explosive corded muscle. Compared to 10 days ago, the aura radiating from him was immeasurably more formidable. He had to admit this sensation of growing stronger bit by bit was utterly intoxicating. Were it not for the rising and setting of the sun, he might not have even registered the passage of time. With a resounding thud, the boulder crashed to the ground, blasting a crater nearly half a meter deep. Li Fan immediately quenched his thirst with spring water and voraciously devoured the wild boar meat he had prepared earlier. I can't believe 10 days have already passed. Glancing at the date on his phone, Li Fan couldn't help but feel a surge of surprise. Time truly flew by. A rough calculation told him there were only about 5 or 6 days left until the admissions exams for the major martial arts universities. He tapped open his attribute panel. Name Li Fan. Level LV7, 232-0000. Strength 5,732. Defense 5,909. Spirit 5,820. 10 days of arduous, relentless training. Li Fan's level had broken through to the 7th tier, and his various attributes had been pushed to an almost inconceivable degree. By rough estimates, these stats could rival those of many awakened around level 25. Li Fan was exceedingly satisfied with this outcome. To be honest, though, he was thoroughly sick of eating wild boar meat. He had no desire to remain in this place any longer. He stood up, gathered his belongings, and headed towards the exit. Next, he would have to confront the matter of choosing a university. He had no intention of hiding his monstrous physical training talent. On the contrary, he planned to leverage it to see if he could secure exceptional admission into a top-tier university. The better the university, the more resources he could potentially obtain for free and the more opportunities to broaden his horizons. He had absolutely no interest in attending some third or fourth-rate institution. The university he most aspired to attend was Beida University. As the top-ranked institution among the 10 great martial arts universities of the Xia dynasty, its resources were undoubtedly the most abundant. If he could get in there, his physical training talent would undoubtedly progress even faster, allowing him to reach true absolute invincibility sooner. However, Beida University's standards for exceptional admission were significantly higher than those of other top 10 schools. He wasn't entirely confident he would be accepted. Stepping out of the secret realm, the sight of towering skyscrapers filled Li Fan with immense excitement. Having lived rough in the wilds for 10 days straight, returning felt like being reborn into a new world. Whoa, he's so handsome. Oh my god, that body is incredible. What a manly physique. I wish he were my boyfriend. Walking around without a shirt just to show off for the girls, what a show off. It was only upon hearing the surrounding chatter that Li Fan realized he had walked out without his top. He simply wasn't used to wearing clothes anymore. Quickly leaving the scene, Li Fan hurried off towards home. His current filthy state was hardly presentable. On the way, Li Fan opened his message log for the first time in a while. The first messages he saw were from Gu Ling. There were dozens of them. Brother Li Fan, are you busy? Brother Li Fan, I'm leveling up so fast, I'm already level 5. Brother Li Fan, I'm already level 10, want me to take you grinding. Brother Li Fan, which university are you planning to apply for? I want to be in the same city as you so we can be closer. Reading these messages, Li Fan couldn't help but scratch his head, a wave of guilt washing over him. He had been so focused on training in the wild boar forest that he had muted all notifications. He hadn't expected the girl to send him so many messages. Looking at them, Li Fan felt a pang of remorse. Anyone else would likely be upset if their messages went unanswered for so long. Yet Gu Ling had been nothing but gentle throughout, even making excuses for him, suggesting he must have been held up by something. To be fair, Gu Ling was incredibly good to him. Gu Ling's final message informed him that she had already set off for Beizhou City, intending to apply for Qingqiong University. Qingqiong University, ranked second among the Xia dynasty's martial arts universities, was located just across the street from Beida University. Li Fan wasn't surprised by her choice. Healing-type talents were incredibly rare. Although Gu Ling's talent was only B rank in the combat category, it would easily be treated as A, or even a rank. It would be strange if someone of that caliber didn't attend a prestigious school. Soon Li Fan sent a message back to Gu Ling. Ling, sorry, I was in a secret realm and didn't see your messages. I should be heading to Beizhou City in the next few days. Go on ahead, when I get there I'll take you out for some delicious food. Li Fan was not one for drawn-out games. As he had said before, matters of the heart could wait until university. Since university was imminent, he naturally wouldn't go back on his word. Honestly, Gu Ling met his criteria in almost every aspect, though the emotional foundation between them hadn't quite solidified yet. But feelings are something that naturally develop with time spent together. On the other end, Gu Ling's spirits soared upon reading Li Fan's message, a faint blush creeping across her cheeks. She promptly replied, I'll wait for you. She also sent a cheerful cute emoji along with the text. Watching Gu Ling's reaction, Lu Mei, who was beside her, was left speechless. Her poor love-struck best friend was being played right into the palm of a man's hand. Upon arriving home, Li Fan's first priority was to take a long, soothing hot shower. Oh, that's better. Compared to the icy river water in the secret realm, the comfort of home was unmatched. After his shower, Li Fan turned on his computer and took care of registering for the Beida University entrance examination. The registration was successfully completed. He then purchased a train ticket to Beizhou City for the earliest available departure. The departure time was set for the afternoon after next. This meant Li Fan had less than 2 days to rest. But resting was out of the question. To be safe, he needed to push his stats even higher. As the foremost institution in the Xia dynasty, Beida University had profound depths. They must have seen countless monstrous talents when it came to physical enhancement. What he needed to do was distinguish himself from them. He had to be in a league of his own. And so, without a moment's hesitation, Li Fan immediately identified the next secret realm he would enter. Goblin Underground Palace. So they had gone to fetch reinforcements. Li Fan found this utterly exasperating. These examinees had actually banded together to come and settle the score with him. Was this really necessary? At that moment, another person stepped out from the group, wielding a massive hammer, and pointed at Li Fan, declaring, You bastard! Spit out all our points. You? Before he could even finish his sentence, the mount beneath Li Fan let out a thunderous roar, startling him so much that his face turned pale, and he staggered back a few steps. It was actually a level 30 explosive tiger beast. After glancing at the crowd around him, he regained his confidence and continued, You've incurred everyone's wrath. Don't think you can stay in this secret realm any longer. I advise you to hand over your points token and leave on your own, and you might just avoid a beating. As he finished speaking, many in the crowd chimed in agreement. That's right. Hand over your points and get out of the secret realm. Exactly. Be smart and get lost. You thief. Did you hear us? The voices grew louder and the group's aggressive demeanor intensified. However, despite all the fierce shouting, not a single person dared to make the first move. This sight made Li Fan even more exasperated. To be honest, facing so many people at once was somewhat troublesome. But unfortunately, these people lacked unity and were not a solid force. Although they all came for revenge, each seemed to have their own reservations, otherwise at least one would have dared to act. Therefore, these people could be collectively referred to as a motley crowd. Li Fan was not in the least afraid of such a group. Fighting 100 alone was a piece of cake. Li Fan exerted a slight pressure with his legs, and the explosive tiger beast beneath him instantly let out a shocking roar. The terrifying aura brought the shouting to an abrupt halt and forced everyone to take an involuntary step back. Folks, I think we should skip the pleasantries. If you have the guts, come and take the points. The token is right here. Li Fan then took off his points token, holding it up high, and smiled at the crowd, his eyes full of provocation. Upon hearing this, everyone was burning with anger, their faces darkening. But despite their anger, they all just exchanged hesitant glances, seemingly unwilling to be the first to stick their neck out. While they hesitated, Li Fan made his move. Since you're not making a move, I will. As his words faded in the blink of an eye, Li Fan vanished from his spot. This sight terrified all 100 people present, their faces changing drastically. Where did he go? Not good. Where is he? Did he run away? For a moment, a frantic uproar erupted from the group, all searching for Li Fan. But by the time he reappeared in their sight, it was already too late. Because Li Fan was already right in their midst. Shing. Boom. Bang. In an instant within the crowd, Li Fan's amiable smile terrified everyone, and various attack effects went flying everywhere. However, these attacks only served to injure their own allies, posing no threat to Li Fan whatsoever. Instead, Li Fan was like a wolf among sheep, moving with incredible speed. With a kick for each, they were sent flying into the air one after another. When they landed, their points tokens had already fallen into Li Fan's hands. In no time, most of the 100+ people were thrown into disarray, each one bruised and battered. Those in slightly better condition were already scared out of their wits and fleeing. Meanwhile, Li Fan's small cloth pouch was now filled with over 100 points tokens. Tisk, you guys really have so few points. Li Fan began transferring the points. But to his annoyance, their points were pitifully low. If it weren't for the sheer quantity, he wouldn't have bothered transferring them one by one. Li Fan's words brought tears to the eyes of the bruised and battered crowd. Damn it. Of course our points are few, didn't you rob us all yesterday? Even when harvesting leeks, you should let them grow a bit before cutting. But then again, it wasn't like Li Fan had sought them out this time, they had brought it upon themselves. Now they were truly at a loss for tears. Why did they even provoke Li Fan, whose strength was so terrifying? Meanwhile, in the meeting room, the mentors watching this scene were all stunned. Initially, when they saw a large group going to seek revenge on Li Fan, they thought it would be an interesting spectacle. But when it came to actual combat, it was another one-sided situation. Over 100 people and not one dared to take the lead, only to be utterly defeated by Li Fan 1 against 100. If these people were to enter Beatty, they would be too ashamed to admit they were students of Beatty University. Li Fan's strength is truly off the charts. If it weren't for those sophomore brats, he would have completely ruined this assessment. Indeed, with the way Li Fan is collecting points, by the third day, a third of the examinees probably won't have more than 1,000 points. Yeah, he's another Wong Tong. Having Li Fan's strength in this mix is too unfair to the other examinees. By the way, what's the situation with those sophomores now? The mentors discussed, animatedly full of mixed feelings about Li Fan. His presence was indeed affecting the balance of this assessment. The only saving grace now was that this bug, named Li Fan, could be fixed by the sophomores. And speaking of the senior students, at this moment on the outskirts of the dense forest, a massive group of figures could be seen. Damn. Finally, it's the second day. Finally, we can make a move. Get ready. Get ready. Juniors, are you ready to meet your seniors? Damn it. Finally, we can do something. Don't any of you steal those 3S ranks, they're mine. Start early, finish early. Let's go, let's go. Brothers, if you see any pretty junior girls, remember to get their contact info for me. I have a friend who needs a wife. That's right. These figures were precisely the sophomore seniors who had been waiting for a long time. After a day of waiting, they could finally formally enter the dense forest and mountains to spar with the examinees. For them, the wait had been unbearable. And shortly after the seniors entered, wails and screams began to echo from various parts of the secret realm. Senior, please spare us. We really don't have any points. Run. The seniors are here. Senior sister, you're too beautiful for fighting. How about letting us get a 1-minute head start? Run. There are seniors chasing us from behind. Arg. I'll fight you all. Senior, please show mercy. I was just joking. Damn it. I ran into the madman yesterday, and today I run into seniors the moment I open my eyes. What kind of rotten luck is this? The arrival of the sophomore seniors was like wolves entering a flock of sheep, devastating and overwhelming. Many examinees were defeated in an instant, their points reduced to 0. Before long, the dense forest was filled with fear of the senior students. This scene was well within the mentors' expectations. The strength of the sophomores was simply on another level. And this was the time to test the comprehensive abilities of the examinees. In a new environment, full of dangers, cooperation and combat were crucial skills. But the ability to flee, hide, and survive was even more important. Bang! Li Fan reached out and deftly secured the beast core of a white goblin. In no time at all, the small pouch he had brought was already a third full. Li Fan couldn't help but feel a sense of helplessness. Given the pouch's capacity, the number of beast cores and materials he could continue to collect would be quite limited. He had miscalculated. He'd left in such a hurry that he hadn't brought a larger bag. If only I had a spatial ring, he muttered. Li Fan murmured to himself. With a spatial ring, he could afford to be more relaxed when he went to secret realms to stock up on fierce beast meat in the future. After some thought, he decided to save up a bit and buy one. Just as he was pondering this, a sudden cough sounded from behind him. Turning around, he saw a fat man and a thin man approaching, neither wearing a friendly expression. Moreover, judging by the aura emanating from them, their levels were definitely not low. Li Fan reacted quickly, immediately guessing their intentions. All right, kid, we too don't have time to watch your performance. Hand over your weapon, will you? That's right, hand over that mental type weapon of yours. My brother here says if you give it willingly, we'll let you keep a whole corpse. The twin brothers stated their purpose directly. Clearly, they didn't take Li Fan seriously at all. However, Li Fan's gaze towards them had shifted from initial wariness to one that was increasingly fervent. Because he clearly saw that both of them were wearing spatial rings on their hands. He had just been wondering where to get the money to buy one, and now a ring had practically delivered itself to his doorstep. Seeing the burning intensity in Li Fan's eyes, the smiles on the twins' faces gradually froze. Could it be that his mental-type weapon was far more powerful than they had imagined? As for the answer, they would never get the chance to know, because in the very next second, without even a shred of communication, their life force was directly extinguished. The scene that followed was Li Fan dashing forward with joyful steps to loot their belongings. After a thorough check, he found nothing else besides the two spatial rings. Opening the rings, several bank cards were lying inside. Aside from the bank cards, there wasn't much else of use. He had to admit these two were far poorer than him. He'd expected some valuable materials or beast cores. But then again, it made sense. If they weren't desperate, why would two level 40 individuals come seeking fortune in such a low-level secret realm? Regardless, the two spatial rings were already a massive win. After finishing the loot, Li Fan felt a hint of lingering fear. This annihilation nether eye can't be used carelessly. I need to make sure there's no one trailing behind first, he thought. These two were relatively foolish and simple-minded bandits. If they had been more cunning adversaries, things could have gotten dangerous. But ultimately, he still needed to raise his stats further. Once his physical body was formidable enough, he'd have nothing to worry about. He continued forward, slaughtering his way through relentlessly. Before long, a mountain of beast cores had piled up inside the spatial ring. He checked the time. It was already evening. Having farmed for so long, Li Fan was beginning to feel weary. After some thought, he decided not to venture deeper and prepared to leave the secret realm. He was set to depart for Beizhou City tomorrow afternoon. He planned to contact the black market later to deal with those bank cards. Tonight he could finally get a good night's sleep. Just as Li Fan was about to turn and leave, he suddenly felt the ground vibrating. He looked up towards the passage ahead. In the next second, a crimson stone axe flew through the air with a piercing whistle hurtling straight towards Li Fan. He immediately bent backwards in a swift dodge. Bang! The axe flew past Li Fan and embedded itself deeply into the stone wall behind him. With such power, an ordinary person would have been decapitated instantly. Li Fan continued to stare down the passage. Judging by the weapon, it had to be another goblin. But this goblin's aura was far stronger than any he had taken down before. Before long, a massive figure emerged from the darkness. Its skin was a deep crimson, and with fangs over a meter long, the sight filled Li Fan with excitement. Because this was a goblin lord, he had thought he wouldn't have the chance to encounter one, yet here it was. Without a moment's hesitation, Li Fan let out a battle cry and shot forward like a cannonball, charging straight at the goblin lord. With a single punch, the goblin lord was blasted into pieces. With Li Fan's terrifying stats, a level 20 goblin lord was truly nothing to worry about. He collected the golden beast core, his mood soaring. At this rate, he should be able to level up to 10, without any hesitation. Li Fan immediately began to absorb its energy. However, it was clear that a single level 20 lord's core wasn't enough to directly push him to level 10. Left with no choice, he absorbed all the beast cores he had previously collected in his spatial ring. Fortunately, after absorbing everything, his level officially reached level 10. The feeling of becoming stronger made him involuntarily open his status panel. Name: Li Fan. Level LV 10-102-00000. Strength 7032. Defense 6809. Spirit 6720. These stats were already quite impressive. Once he arrived at Beizhou City, if he spent a couple of days training hard to boost his stats further, his chances of getting into Beta University would be significantly higher. But right now the most troubling issue was money. He had absorbed all the beast cores. All he had left were the materials from the goblins and those bank cards that were still uncracked. Going back to farm more would be too time-consuming and energy-draining. Everything now hinged on those bank cards from the twins. Exiting the secret realm, the sky had already darkened. Li Fan immediately contacted the black market to have the bank cards cracked. In this day and age, despite being called a black market, this kind of industry had actually developed into a complete and full-fledged chain. By paying a service fee of around 5 of the amount on the card, cracking it and transferring the funds to an anonymous bank card was an easy task. As for the risk of being scammed, there wasn't much to worry about. It was a very rare occurrence. Because the black market valued its reputation and wouldn't risk losing a watermelon for a sesame seed. Before long, the black market delivered an anonymous bank card to Li Fan. After checking the balance, he was so excited, he almost blurted out a swear word. A full 5 million. Damn, those twins looked poor, but they actually had some real savings. But thinking about it, being level 40, they must have been able to scrape together a few million. And for high-level awakened, 5 million was actually considered quite poor. In the end, it was just that Li Fan hadn't seen much of the world yet. 5 million wasn't much for a high-level awakened, but for Li Fan, or even his entire family, it was an astronomical sum. Weighed down by this fortune, Li Fan rushed home. After taking a shower, he intended to carefully plan how to spend the money. But as he was planning, his eyelids grew heavier and heavier, and before he knew it, he had fallen fast asleep. Awakening. Time had already slipped to noon the following day. Stretching lazily, Li Fan felt entirely refreshed and invigorated. However, after checking the time, he quickly sprang up with a swift motion, hurriedly washed up, packed his luggage, and headed straight for the high-speed rail station. He arrived at the station at exactly 2 in the afternoon, with only 10 minutes to spare before departure. That was close. I nearly overslept. Boarding the train, Li Fan finally caught his breath. Indeed, grinding monsters for nearly 2 days straight without sleep was truly exhausting. If only his level had exceeded 30. In this world, awakened individuals had a chance to undergo a transformation every time they gained 30 levels, somewhat akin to the awakening in the dungeons of his past life. Upon reaching level 31, could undergo the first transformation. After succeeding, the body could automatically absorb nutrients from heaven and earth. Although it didn't significantly boost cultivation speed, its effect on reducing fatigue and enhancing vitality was quite effective. For those with more pronounced effects, they could remain energetic even without sleep for over 10 days. Subsequently, he sent a message to Gu Ling. Gu Ling replied almost instantly. From the cheerful emoticons she sent, it was evident she was overjoyed and eagerly anticipating their meeting. After agreeing to meet that night in Beizhou City to visit the night market, Li Fan put on his earphones and began doing push-ups in the open area of the train car. Since he had nothing else to do and he had spare food in his spatial ring, he decided to utilize this travel time to further enhance his stats. Li Fan didn't worry about being seen as an oddity. On the contrary, such behavior was often admired, as many awakened individuals with physical-type talents on the train did the same. No one would mock a person striving diligently. In Beizhou City at the West Gate Square of Qingxiong University, a large number of students had gathered. Apart from the majority of students preparing for the Qingxiong University entrance exam in 2 days, many senior students had also set up small booths early on to promote their respective clubs. Gu Ling and Lu Mei were among the crowd. They wanted to get an initial understanding of the campus clubs and also inquire about the entrance exam from the senior students. Gu Ling was dressed simply today in a white shirt and denim shorts, but her striking features made her look incredibly youthful and radiant, drawing many glances. Many senior students and incoming freshmen approached Gu Ling for her contact information. However, Gu Ling's heart was already taken, so she naturally declined them all. Hey, see all these handsome guys. And they all have high-level talents. Why are you so fixated on just one Li Fan? You're giving up a whole forest for one crooked tree. Lu Mei, holding Gu Ling's arm, scanned the passing boys, and then leaned close to Gu Ling's ear, sharing her excitement, while also taking a jab at Li Fan. Gu Ling paused, then smiled sweetly. It's fine, I happen to like crooked trees. Upon hearing this, Lu Mei was speechless and could only shut her mouth, turning her attention back to admiring the handsome guys passing by. She had given up trying to persuade Gu Ling. She'd just let her love-struck friend be. As for Gu Ling, while Lu Mei was busy ogling, her attention was focused on the club introductions. In a martial arts university, besides diligently training with instructors, choosing a good club was also crucial. This was because parties for dungeon expeditions were typically formed within clubs. Some special dungeons under the jurisdiction of Qingxiong University also required club assistants to apply for faster access permissions. A sufficiently powerful club often meant a faster growth rate compared to others. Hey, they're considering joining our Qingyun club after enrollment. Our club consists exclusively of A-rank talent awakeners, covering everything from combat to support and lifestyle. Tornado Club is recruiting new members. Our club is full of handsome guys and beautiful girls. Want to improve through dungeon training and find true love at the same time. White Dragon Club is recruiting. New members will be personally guided by core members through dungeons, guaranteeing a minimum of 2 level ups. The shouts and calls rose from all directions. After looking around, Gu Ling didn't find a club that caught her eye. However, this was only a small part of them. After officially passing the exam, there would be a dedicated club recruitment event on campus, so there was no need to rush. Checking the time, there were less than 2 hours until Li Fan arrived at the Beizhou City high-speed rail station. So Gu Ling immediately called her cousin Gu Quan. In no time, a luxury car pulled up to the nearest street corner. Soon a tall man dressed very casually got out and waved towards Gu Ling. The man's appearance immediately sparked a wave of discussion. Whoa, isn't that Gu Quan from Beida University? So handsome, damn. Gu Quan, the one with the A-rank talent and the title King of the Battle Axe. That's him. I've seen his battle videos online. He's incredibly strong. Why is he here? I heard he's only a sophomore, but can already compete with juniors and seniors. His level is almost 40, I think. SSS. And that girl is walking over to him. Could she be Gu Quan's girlfriend? Wow. No wonder she ignored me when I greeted her earlier. Turns out her boyfriend is Gu Quan. Gu Quan was clearly enjoying the attention. He put on his sunglasses and struck various poses. Gu Ling quickly walked over, not forgetting to say goodbye to Lu Mei. Lu Mei, I'm heading off now. Have fun on your own. Lu Mei responded, her eyes glued to her phone. Got it. See you tonight. Clearly Lu Mei had already found her target. Getting into the car, Gu Quan drove off towards the high-speed rail station, with Gu Ling, and the discussions among the crowd gradually faded away. In the car, cousin, thank you. I'll treat you to a meal sometime, Gu Ling said obediently. Gu Quan waved his hand with a smile. It's nothing much, we're family. Uncle and aunt told me to take good care of you. Our schools are just a street apart. If you ever run into trouble, come to me first. I might not have much, but I've got connections. Indeed, her cousin was very enthusiastic. He looked big and rough, but was actually warm-hearted. Subsequently, Gu Quan began to inquire about Li Fan's situation. Gu Ling was of age to date, so her family wasn't too concerned about such matters. However, upon learning that Li Fan had a D-rank talent, Gu Quan's brow immediately furrowed. He has a D-rank talent. Ling, you're not joking with your cousin, are you? Gu Ling shrugged and said honestly, yes, but don't let his D-rank talent fool you. He's actually a really great person. Gu Quan heard the first part, but the rest was automatically filtered out. He had a strange feeling like his cabbage had been eaten by a pig. Do uncle and aunt know about his situation? Not yet. You know how my parents are. And Li Fan and I haven't officially confirmed our relationship yet. Upon hearing this, Gu Quan felt a bit better. If they hadn't officially confirmed the relationship, it meant there was still room to turn things around. As her cousin, he couldn't just watch his little sister walk into a fire. At that moment, a plan began to form in his mind. So they had gone to fetch reinforcements. Li Fan found this utterly exasperating. These examinees had actually banded together to come and settle the score with him. Was this really necessary? At that moment, another person stepped out from the group, wielding a massive hammer, and pointed at Li Fan, declaring, "You bastard! Spit out all our points." You? Before he could even finish his sentence, the mount beneath Li Fan let out a thunderous roar, startling him so much that his face turned pale, and he staggered back a few steps. It was actually a level 30 explosive tiger beast. After glancing at the crowd around him, he regained his confidence and continued, "You've incurred everyone's wrath. Don't think you can stay in this secret realm any longer. I advise you to hand over your points token and leave on your own, and you might just avoid a beating." As he finished speaking, many in the crowd chimed in agreement. That's right. Hand over your points and get out of the secret realm. Exactly. Be smart and get lost. You thief. Did you hear us? The voices grew louder and the group's aggressive demeanor intensified. However, despite all the fierce shouting, not a single person dared to make the first move. This sight made Li Fan even more exasperated. To be honest, facing so many people at once was somewhat troublesome. But unfortunately, these people lacked unity and were not a solid force. Although they all came for revenge, each seemed to have their own reservations, otherwise at least one would have dared to act. Therefore, these people could be collectively referred to as a motley crowd. Li Fan was not in the least afraid of such a group. Fighting 100 alone was a piece of cake. Li Fan exerted a slight pressure with his legs, and the explosive tiger beast beneath him instantly let out a shocking roar. The terrifying aura brought the shouting to an abrupt halt and forced everyone to take an involuntary step back. Folks, I think we should skip the pleasantries. If you have the guts, come and take the points. The token is right here. Li Fan then took off his points token, holding it up high, and smiled at the crowd, his eyes full of provocation. Upon hearing this, everyone was burning with anger, their faces darkening. But despite their anger, they all just exchanged hesitant glances, seemingly unwilling to be the first to stick their neck out. While they hesitated, Li Fan made his move. "Since you're not making a move, I will." As his words faded in the blink of an eye, Li Fan vanished from his spot. This sight terrified all 100 people present, their faces changing drastically. Where did he go? Not good. Where is he? Did he run away? For a moment, a frantic uproar erupted from the group, all searching for Li Fan. But by the time he reappeared in their sight, it was already too late. Because Li Fan was already right in their midst. Shing. Boom. Bang. In an instant within the crowd, Li Fan's amiable smile terrified everyone, and various attack effects went flying everywhere. However, these attacks only served to injure their own allies, posing no threat to Li Fan whatsoever. Instead, Li Fan was like a wolf among sheep, moving with incredible speed. With a kick for each, they were sent flying into the air one after another. When they landed, their points tokens had already fallen into Li Fan's hands. In no time, most of the 100+ people were thrown into disarray, each one bruised and battered. Those in slightly better condition were already scared out of their wits and fleeing. Meanwhile, Li Fan's small cloth pouch was now filled with over 100 points tokens. Tisk, you guys really have so few points. Li Fan began transferring the points. But to his annoyance, their points were pitifully low. If it weren't for the sheer quantity, he wouldn't have bothered transferring them one by one. Li Fan's words brought tears to the eyes of the bruised and battered crowd. Damn it. Of course our points are few. Didn't you rob us all yesterday? Even when harvesting leeks, you should let them grow a bit before cutting. But then again, it wasn't like Li Fan had sought them out this time. They had brought it upon themselves. Now they were truly at a loss for tears. Why did they even provoke Li Fan, whose strength was so terrifying? Meanwhile, in the meeting room, The mentors watching this scene were all stunned. Initially, when they saw a large group going to seek revenge on Li Fan, they thought it would be an interesting spectacle. But when it came to actual combat, it was another one-sided situation. Over 100 people and not one dared to take the lead, only to be utterly defeated by Li Fan 1 against 100. If these people were to enter Beatty, they would be too ashamed to admit they were students of Beatty University. Li Fan's strength is truly off the charts. If it weren't for those sophomore brats, he would have completely ruined this assessment. Indeed, with the way Li Fan is collecting points by the third day, a third of the examinees probably won't have more than 1,000 points. Yeah, he's another Wong Tong. Having Li Fan's strength in this mix is too unfair to the other examinees. By the way, what's the situation with those sophomores now? The mentors discussed animatedly, full of mixed feelings about Li Fan. His presence was indeed affecting the balance of this assessment. The only saving grace now was that this bug, named Li Fan, could be fixed by the sophomores. And speaking of the senior students, at this moment on the outskirts of the dense forest, a massive group of figures could be seen. Damn, finally it's the second day. Finally we can make a move. Get ready, get ready. Juniors, are you ready to meet your seniors? Damn it. Finally we can do something. Don't any of you steal those 3S ranks, they're mine. Start early, finish early. Let's go, let's go. Brothers, if you see any pretty junior girls, remember to get their contact info for me. I have a friend who needs a wife. That's right. These figures were precisely the sophomore seniors who had been waiting for a long time. After a day of waiting, they could finally formally enter the dense forest and mountains to spar with the examinees. For them, the wait had been unbearable. And shortly after the seniors entered, wails and screams began to echo from various parts of the secret realm. Senior, please spare us. We really don't have any points. Run. The seniors are here. Senior sister, you're too beautiful for fighting. How about letting us get a 1-minute head start? Run. There are seniors chasing us from behind. Arg. I'll fight you all. Senior, please show mercy. I was just joking. Damn it. I ran into the madman yesterday, and today I run into seniors the moment I open my eyes. What kind of rotten luck is this? The arrival of the sophomore seniors was like wolves entering a flock of sheep, devastating and overwhelming. Many examinees were defeated in an instant, their points reduced to 0. Before long, the dense forest was filled with fear of the senior students. This scene was well within the mentors' expectations. The strength of the sophomores was simply on another level. And this was the time to test the comprehensive abilities of the examinees. In a new environment, full of dangers, cooperation and combat were crucial skills. But the ability to flee, hide, and survive was even more important. At the night market. This was the hour when the night market was most crowded. Li Fan pulled Gu Ling along as they began to stroll through it. Gu Ling blushed thinking about what Li Fan had said earlier, and for a long time, she didn't dare to strike up a conversation with him. Li Fan, on the other hand, acted as if nothing had happened, immediately launching into a frenzy of ordering food upon getting out of the car. He had no choice. The ingredients stored in his spatial ring were already depleted. He was genuinely quite hungry now. Li Fan, Gij, I'm sorry, my cousin, he. After hesitating for a long time, Gu Ling finally gathered her courage and spoke to Li Fan with an apologetic expression. But before she could finish her sentence, her words were cut off by the candied hawthorn stick Li Fan offered her. Try this one. Li Fan said with a smile, then consoled her. Ling Ling, you don't need to apologize for your cousin. With my D-rank talent, his actions are understandable. But trust me, I really can get into North Emperor University. There were still 2 days until the entrance exam. If he continued to train these 2 days, his stats would rise to another level entirely. So he was now extremely confident about getting into North Emperor. Hearing Li Fan's words, Gu Ling still seemed somewhat doubtful, but since Li Fan said so, she didn't argue. Then Gu Ling directly took out 2 tubes of purple supplement from her spatial ring and handed them to Li Fan. Li Fan, Gij, take these, they should be of some help to you. Li Fan looked at the 2 tubes of supplement. Judging by the color, he immediately identified them as supplements used between levels LV20 and LV30. Supplements of this level were already quite valuable, roughly estimated to cost at least $1 million. However, this stuff probably wouldn't have much effect on Li Fan. Ling Ling, this is too precious, you should keep them for yourself. Li Fan was about to refuse, but before he could finish, Gu Ling forcefully shoved the supplements into his hands. Li Fan, Gij, please accept them. Your matters are my matters. Besides, no matter which school you get into, I will come find you. Helpless Li Fan could only accept them. Under the streetlight, Li Fan and Gu Ling, like many couples, chatted happily in front of a food stall, sharing amusing recent experiences and occasionally some plans for the future. Looking at Gu Ling's radiant, beautiful smile, Li Fan couldn't help but feel a bit dazed. The short-haired girl who was his deskmate back when they first entered high school. Now she had blossomed into an elegant and graceful young woman and had even become his first love in this other world. A while ago, he hadn't felt much for Gu Ling. But sometimes feelings intensify in just a single moment. After eating and drinking their fill, Li Fan took Gu Ling home. On the way, they still had endless things to talk about. Li Fan, Gij, what you said in the car earlier, did you mean it? Huh, I mean, That thing. Oh right, of course it's true. But having a whole litter is a bit much. My idea is 2, 1 boy and 1 girl just perfect. What do you think? I'll listen to you, Li Fan Gidge. After sending Gu Ling back, Li Fan found the nearest in near North Emperor University and checked in. He bought a batch of high-quality beast meat online and immediately began intense training. He wanted to see just how high his stats could go in 2 days. This little amount costs 500,000. Money really doesn't last. After buying the beast meat, Li Fan's heart ached. Although he currently had a full 5 million, its purchasing power was truly insufficient. He'd need to work harder and earn more money in the future. 2 days passed quietly. This morning was the day when the formal exams for the major martial arts universities began. Early in the morning, Li Fan finished washing up and headed straight towards North Emperor University. On the way, after replying to Gu Ling's message, Li Fan slowly opened his attribute panel. Name Li Fan. Level LV 10-235-020-0000. Strength 10,932. Defense 10,309. Spirit 10320. Looking at these changes, Li Fan was very satisfied. Over these 2 days, he spent most of his time training, resulting in a very significant leap in his stats. It was well worth the nearly 1 million he had spent on beast meat. With his current stats, he could completely match the stats of those level 45 physical type awakened. Especially in terms of defense, he could even crush them. This is because for awakened with physical enhancement talents, the most noticeable increase is usually in strength. The increase in defense is generally only about 1/5 of the increase in strength. And spiritual defense generally only increases by a few tenths or even 1/100th of the strength increase. This was one of the limitations Gu Quan had mentioned before. Many awakened with powerful physiques, due to their weaker spiritual defense, become quite useless in battle without spiritual defense-related weapons. But Li Fan was different. It was no exaggeration to say that those awakened specializing in spiritual attacks would need to be at least level 50 or above to even think about breaking through Li Fan's defenses now. In the eyes of ordinary people, Li Fan's current combat stats were completely off the charts. He was only level 10. Yet his overall combat power had reached the level of level 40 or 50. The freshman exam area for North Emperor University was located in an indoor super-large stadium on the south side. It could be seen that quite a few people had already gathered in the stadium. At the very front of the stadium, there were 2 marked areas. The larger area on the left was the general exam area. The smaller area on the right was the special recruitment area. Currently, the vast majority of examinees were in the general exam area. In the special recruitment area, there were only 3 people, 2 men and 1 woman. One of the men had a full, bushy beard and a tall, sturdy build, looking nothing like someone who had just turned 18. The other man had a long, horse-like face, wore very loose-fitting clothes, kept one hand in his pocket, and had a blade of grass dangling from his mouth, looking like he hadn't woken up. The woman, however, was quite beautiful and cute, but unfortunately, she was very petite, dressed in a very cartoonish style, a complete lowly, who also didn't look like she was 18. Just the 3 of them standing there drew the attention of many. A big oaf who looks at least 40, a horse-faced guy who looks half asleep, and a little kid who hasn't grown up yet. These are our North Emperor's special recruits this year. I bet 5 cents they won't make it. They're probably just here to try their luck. They definitely won't pass. North Emperor University isn't some diploma mill. The requirements for special recruits are unimaginably high. Clearly, many people were very pessimistic about the 3 in the special recruitment area. Facing such attention, the 3 reacted differently. The horse-faced guy still had one hand in his pocket, completely expressionless, as if isolated from the outside world. The little lowly, on the other hand, had her brows furrowed, looking somewhat annoyed. As for the burly man with the bushy beard, he was restless and extremely nervous, showing signs of sweating profusely. However, the attention on these 3 shifted abruptly with the arrival of Li Fan. Whoa, now that's a handsome one. Oh my god, this year's special admits are so extreme in looks. Either bizarrely shaped or devastatingly handsome. Goodness. This one seems almost too handsome. He must be the main event of this special admission, right? Whether he's the main event or not in terms of looks, he's definitely the highlight. So handsome. TSK tisk, first time seeing such a good-looking examinee. Suddenly looking forward to him getting into Beatty, then I could have a sweet campus romance with him. Li Fan's appearance had undeniably elevated the standard of attractiveness in the special admission zone. This handsome face quickly captured the admiration of many female examinees present. However, this admiration from the female examinees indirectly stirred resentment among the male examinees. But that didn't matter. After smiling and nodding to the crowd, Li Fan strode towards the special admission zone. Hello there. Li Fan enthusiastically greeted the 3 people in the special admission zone. However, only the burly, bearded man responded to him. Hello, you're also here for the special admission. My name is Lu Chilai. The burly, bearded man said somewhat shyly to Li Fan. Li Fan sized up the other 2 silent examinees, then focused his gaze on the big man. Li Fan, The rest of the time Li Fan chatted with the big man Lu Qilai. Surprisingly enough, despite Lu Qilai's rough and mature appearance, his personality was truly very shy, fitting the image of an 18-year-old youth. After some communication, he learned that Lu Qilai was from Nansu City, and like Li Fan was also on his first trip far from home. Brother Li Fan, do you know anything about Beatty's special admission criteria this year? Lu Qilai asked, scratching his head. Li Fan coughed lightly. Ahem, Brother Qilai, you don't need to call me big brother. Just call me Li Fan. As for the special admission criteria, they seem to differ every year, right? Despite Lu Qilai's youthful innocence, Li Fan still couldn't accept being called big brother by someone who looked over 40. Lu Qilai nodded apologetically. Sorry, classmate Li Fan, I do look a bit mature for my age. Before he could finish his sentence, suddenly, everyone's gaze turned towards the entrance. It's them, the S-rank talent awakeners. Whoa, it really is them. I thought they were already admitted without the exam. Why are they here? Look, it's Lin Yue. My goddess. Damn, it really is Lin Yue. She looks even more beautiful in person than on TV. Is she the S-rank ice elemental divine archer Lin Yue? I heard she's already been chosen by one of Beatty's quasi-divine mentors for personal instruction. Ah, really? A quasi-divine mentor? Could it be Senior Shenlong? The newcomers were precisely the 3 S-rank talent examinees of Beatty University this year. Among them was Lin Yue, whom Li Fan knew well. Lin Yue's stunning appearance had already gained her fame online. The moment she appeared, she stole the spotlight from the other 2 S-rank examinees. At this moment, many richly dressed examinees began to look towards Lin Yue, fixing their hair, looking eager to approach. One examinee with good looks and exceptional temperament, clearly from a distinguished family, had already begun walking towards Lin Yue. Hello, Miss Lin Yue, my name is Wang Xiaochen. As he spoke, he extended his hand, aiming for an elegant handshake. However, mid-sentence Lin Yue changed direction, ignoring him, and walked towards the special admission zone. This scene drew quite a few mocking laughs from the crowd. At the same time, everyone's gaze followed Lin Yue's direction. Without deviation, Lin Yue was walking straight towards Li Fan. This guy, Wang Xiaochen, standing frozen in place, looked in Li Fan's direction, his face darkening. Meanwhile, on the other side, Lin Yue had already begun greeting Li Fan. Li Fan, why are you here? Clearly she was very surprised to see him here. Wasn't Li Fan's talent D-rank in body refinement? Seeing him at Beatty University's entrance exam was simply unbelievable. Why am I here? Isn't it obvious? I'm here for the entrance exam. Li Fan shrugged with a smile. Lin Yue was silent for a moment, looked at the area Li Fan was in, and couldn't help but guess something. Combined with the unusual phenomenon during Li Fan's awakening and what he had said to her that time, it seemed that Li Fan's body refinement talent was not as simple as it appeared on the surface. But no matter what, a talent for physical enhancement was still difficult to meet the standards for exceptional admission to an institution as prestigious as Beatty University. Campus beauty Lin seems to be very popular at Beatty too. While Lin Yue was thinking, Li Fan couldn't help but speak up. Lin Yue turned her head, only then realizing. At this moment, almost all the examinees' gazes were fixed on the 2 of them. I'm leaving first. I hope I really do see you at Beatty. If so, the match between us might be even more exciting. Lin Yue pouted, then smiled at Li Fan, turned, and left the special admission zone to rejoin the other 2 S-rank talent awakeners. But their separation didn't stop the chatter among the examinees. Damn, who is this guy? Could he be Goddess Lin's boyfriend? Not sure, but it seems they knew each other before. Boyfriend? Not likely. Their interaction didn't look that intimate. At most an ex-boyfriend or something. Ex-boyfriend? That sounds even less reliable. Why not? He's so handsome. Walking with Goddess Lin, they look like a perfect match. Maybe they really had something. True. But who is this guy anyway? Does anyone know? At this moment, everyone was very curious about Li Fan's identity. Even Lu Qilai couldn't help but lean in and ask, Brother Li Fan, did you really have a thing with Goddess Lin? Li Fan immediately rolled his eyes. Just an old rival. Don't overthink it. He didn't want to have anything to do with Lin Yue, with her willful personality. As time continued to pass, more and more examinees arrived. The number in the special admission zone gradually expanded from the original 4 to nearly 20. The regular admission zone was also almost full. And the main topic of discussion among the crowd was still about Lin Yue and the other 2 S-rank talent awakeners, as well as Li Fan. Such discussions continued until the arrival of the admissions mentors from Beatty University, which finally brought them to a stop. So they had gone to fetch reinforcements. Li Fan found this utterly exasperating. These examinees had actually banded together to come and settle the score with him. Was this really necessary? At that moment, another person stepped out from the group, wielding a massive hammer, and pointed at Li Fan, declaring, You bastard! Spit out all our points. You? Before he could even finish his sentence, the mount beneath Li Fan let out a thunderous roar, startling him so much that his face turned pale, and he staggered back a few steps. It was actually a level 30 explosive tiger beast. After glancing at the crowd around him, he regained his confidence and continued, "You've incurred everyone's wrath. Don't think you can stay in this secret realm any longer. I advise you to hand over your points token and leave on your own, and you might just avoid a beating." As he finished speaking, many in the crowd chimed in agreement. "That's right. Hand over your points and get out of the secret realm." "Exactly. Be smart and get lost. You thief. Did you hear us?" The voices grew louder and the group's aggressive demeanor intensified. However, despite all the fierce shouting, not a single person dared to make the first move. This sight made Li Fan even more exasperated. To be honest, facing so many people at once was somewhat troublesome. But unfortunately, these people lacked unity and were not a solid force. Although they all came for revenge, each seemed to have their own reservations, otherwise at least one would have dared to act. Therefore, these people could be collectively referred to as a motley crowd. Li Fan was not in the least afraid of such a group. Fighting 100 alone was a piece of cake. Li Fan exerted a slight pressure with his legs, and the explosive tiger beast beneath him instantly let out a shocking roar. The terrifying aura brought the shouting to an abrupt halt and forced everyone to take an involuntary step back. "Folks, I think we should skip the pleasantries. If you have the guts, come and take the points. The token is right here." Li Fan then took off his points token, holding it up high, and smiled at the crowd, his eyes full of provocation. Upon hearing this, everyone was burning with anger, their faces darkening. But despite their anger, they all just exchanged hesitant glances, seemingly unwilling to be the first to stick their neck out. While they hesitated, Li Fan made his move. "Since you're not making a move, I will." As his words faded in the blink of an eye, Li Fan vanished from his spot. This sight terrified all 100 people present, their faces changing drastically. Where did he go? Not good. Where is he? Did he run away? For a moment, a frantic uproar erupted from the group, all searching for Li Fan. But by the time he reappeared in their sight, it was already too late. Because Li Fan was already right in their midst. Shing. Boom. Bang. In an instant within the crowd, Li Fan's amiable smile terrified everyone, and various attack effects went flying everywhere. However, these attacks only served to injure their own allies, posing no threat to Li Fan whatsoever. Instead, Li Fan was like a wolf among sheep, moving with incredible speed. With a kick for each, they were sent flying into the air one after another. When they landed, their points tokens had already fallen into Li Fan's hands. In no time, most of the 100+ people were thrown into disarray, each one bruised and battered. Those in slightly better condition were already scared out of their wits and fleeing. Meanwhile, Li Fan's small cloth pouch was now filled with over 100 points tokens. Tisk, you guys really have so few points." Li Fan began transferring the points. But to his annoyance, their points were pitifully low. If it weren't for the sheer quantity, he wouldn't have bothered transferring them one by one. Li Fan's words brought tears to the eyes of the bruised and battered crowd. "Damn it. Of course our points are few. Didn't you rob us all yesterday? Even when harvesting leeks, you should let them grow a bit before cutting." But then again, it wasn't like Li Fan had sought them out this time. They had brought it upon themselves. Now they were truly at a loss for tears. Why did they even provoke Li Fan, whose strength was so terrifying? Meanwhile, in the meeting room, the mentors watching this scene were all stunned. Initially, when they saw a large group going to seek revenge on Li Fan, they thought it would be an interesting spectacle. But when it came to actual combat, it was another one-sided situation. Over 100 people and not one dared to take the lead, only to be utterly defeated by Li Fan 1 against 100. If these people were to enter Beatty, they would be too ashamed to admit they were students of Beatty University. Li Fan's strength is truly off the charts. If it weren't for those sophomore brats, he would have completely ruined this assessment. Indeed, with the way Li Fan is collecting points, by the third day, a third of the examinees probably won't have more than 1,000 points. Yeah, he's another Wong Tong. Having Li Fan's strength in this mix is too unfair to the other examinees. By the way, what's the situation with those sophomores now? The mentors discussed animatedly, full of mixed feelings about Li Fan. His presence was indeed affecting the balance of this assessment. The only saving grace now was that this bug, named Li Fan, could be fixed by the sophomores. And speaking of the senior students, at this moment on the outskirts of the dense forest, a massive group of figures could be seen. Damn, finally it's the second day. Finally we can make a move. Get ready. Get ready. Juniors, are you ready to meet your seniors? Damn it. Finally we can do something. Don't any of you steal those 3S ranks, they're mine. Start early, finish early. Let's go, let's go. Brothers, if you see any pretty junior girls, remember to get their contact info for me. I have a friend who needs a wife. That's right. These figures were precisely the sophomore seniors who had been waiting for a long time. After a day of waiting, they could finally formally enter the dense forest and mountains to spar with the examinees. For them, the wait had been unbearable. And shortly after the seniors entered, wails and screams began to echo from various parts of the secret realm. Senior, please spare us. We really don't have any points. Run. The seniors are here. Senior sister, you're too beautiful for fighting. How about letting us get a 1-minute head start? Run. There are seniors chasing us from behind. Arg. I'll fight you all. Senior, please show mercy, I was just joking. Damn it. I ran into the madman yesterday, and today, I run into seniors the moment I open my eyes. What kind of rotten luck is this? The arrival of the sophomore seniors was like wolves entering a flock of sheep, devastating and overwhelming. Many examinees were defeated in an instant, their points reduced to 0. Before long, the dense forest was filled with fear of the senior students. This scene was well within the mentor's expectations. The strength of the sophomores was simply on another level. And this was the time to test the comprehensive abilities of the examinees. In a new environment, full of dangers, cooperation and combat were crucial skills. But the ability to flee, hide, and survive was even more important. So they had gone to fetch reinforcements. Li Fan found this utterly exasperating. These examinees had actually banded together to come and settle the score with him. Was this really necessary? At that moment, another person stepped out from the group, wielding a massive hammer, and pointed at Li Fan, declaring, "You bastard! Spit out all our points." You? Before he could even finish his sentence, the mount beneath Li Fan let out a thunderous roar, startling him so much that his face turned pale, and he staggered back a few steps. It was actually a level 30 explosive tiger beast. After glancing at the crowd around him, he regained his confidence and continued, "You've incurred everyone's wrath. Don't think you can stay in this secret realm any longer. I advise you to hand over your points token and leave on your own, and you might just avoid a beating." As he finished speaking, many in the crowd chimed in agreement. That's right. Hand over your points and get out of the secret realm. Exactly. Be smart and get lost. You thief. Did you hear us? The voices grew louder and the group's aggressive demeanor intensified. However, despite all the fierce shouting, not a single person dared to make the first move. This sight made Li Fan even more exasperated. To be honest, facing so many people at once was somewhat troublesome. But unfortunately, these people lacked unity and were not a solid force. Although they all came for revenge, each seemed to have their own reservations, otherwise at least one would have dared to act. Therefore, these people could be collectively referred to as a motley crowd. Li Fan was not in the least afraid of such a group. Fighting 100 alone was a piece of cake. Li Fan exerted a slight pressure with his legs, and the explosive tiger beast beneath him instantly let out a shocking roar. The terrifying aura brought the shouting to an abrupt halt and forced everyone to take an involuntary step back. Folks, I think we should skip the pleasantries. If you have the guts, come and take the points. The token is right here. Li Fan then took off his points token, holding it up high, and smiled at the crowd, his eyes full of provocation. Upon hearing this, everyone was burning with anger, their faces darkening. But despite their anger, they all just exchanged hesitant glances, seemingly unwilling to be the first to stick their neck out. While they hesitated, Li Fan made his move. "Since you're not making a move, I will." As his words faded in the blink of an eye, Li Fan vanished from his spot. This sight terrified all 100 people present, their faces changing drastically. Where did he go? Not good. Where is he? Did he run away? For a moment, a frantic uproar erupted from the group, all searching for Li Fan. But by the time he reappeared in their sight, it was already too late. Because Li Fan was already right in their midst. Shing. Boom. Bang. In an instant within the crowd, Li Fan's amiable smile terrified everyone, and various attack effects went flying everywhere. However, these attacks only served to injure their own allies, posing no threat to Li Fan whatsoever. Instead, Li Fan was like a wolf among sheep, moving with incredible speed. With a kick for each, they were sent flying into the air one after another. When they landed, their points tokens had already fallen into Li Fan's hands. In no time, most of the 100+ people were thrown into disarray, each one bruised and battered. Those in slightly better condition were already scared out of their wits and fleeing. Meanwhile, Li Fan's small cloth pouch was now filled with over 100 points tokens. Tisk, you guys really have so few points. Li Fan began transferring the points. But to his annoyance, their points were pitifully low. If it weren't for the sheer quantity, he wouldn't have bothered transferring them one by one. Li Fan's words brought tears to the eyes of the bruised and battered crowd. Damn it. Of course our points are few, didn't you rob us all yesterday? Even when harvesting leeks, you should let them grow a bit before cutting. But then again, it wasn't like Li Fan had sought them out this time, they had brought it upon themselves. Now they were truly at a loss for tears. Why did they even provoke Li Fan, whose strength was so terrifying? Meanwhile, in the meeting room, the mentors watching this scene were all stunned. Initially, when they saw a large group going to seek revenge on Li Fan, they thought it would be an interesting spectacle. But when it came to actual combat, it was another one-sided situation. Over 100 people and not one dared to take the lead, only to be utterly defeated by Li Fan 1 against 100. If these people were to enter Beatty, they would be too ashamed to admit they were students of Beatty University. Li Fan's strength is truly off the charts. If it weren't for those sophomore brats, he would have completely ruined this assessment. Indeed, with the way Li Fan is collecting points, by the third day, a third of the examinees probably won't have more than 1,000 points. Yeah, he's another Wong Tong. Having Li Fan's strength in this mix is too unfair to the other examinees. By the way, what's the situation with those sophomores now? The mentors discussed animatedly, full of mixed feelings about Li Fan. His presence was indeed affecting the balance of this assessment. The only saving grace now was that this bug, named Li Fan, could be fixed by the sophomores. And speaking of the senior students, at this moment on the outskirts of the dense forest, a massive group of figures could be seen. Damn, finally it's the second day. Finally we can make a move. Get ready. Get ready. Juniors, are you ready to meet your seniors? Damn it. Finally we can do something. Don't any of you steal those 3S ranks, they're mine. Start early, finish early. Let's go, let's go. Brothers, if you see any pretty junior girls, remember to get their contact info for me. I have a friend who needs a wife. That's right. These figures were precisely the sophomore seniors who had been waiting for a long time. After a day of waiting, they could finally formally enter the dense forest and mountains to spar with the examinees. For them the wait had been unbearable. And shortly after the seniors entered, wails and screams began to echo from various parts of the secret realm. Senior, please spare us. We really don't have any points. Run. The seniors are here. Senior sister, you're too beautiful for fighting. How about letting us get a 1-minute head start? Run. There are seniors chasing us from behind. Arg. I'll fight you all. Senior, please show mercy. I was just joking. Damn it. I ran into the madman yesterday, and today I run into seniors the moment I open my eyes. What kind of rotten luck is this? The arrival of the sophomore seniors was like wolves entering a flock of sheep, devastating and overwhelming. Many examinees were defeated in an instant, their points reduced to 0. Before long, the dense forest was filled with fear of the senior students. This scene was well within the mentors' expectations. The strength of the sophomores was simply on another level. And this was the time to test the comprehensive abilities of the examinees. In a new environment, full of dangers, cooperation and combat were crucial skills. But the ability to flee, hide and survive was even more important. There are quite a few promising talents this year. So this is the power of an S-rank ice element divine archer. Truly formidable. Indeed, with proper nurturing, our Xia nation will surely gain another god-level powerhouse. 1. I think you've lost your mind. The potential of the other 2 S-rank talents is also immense. Barring any accidents, reaching god level is well within their grasp. Enough. Do you really think reaching god level is that easy? How many god-level powerhouses does our Xia nation have in total? I suggest you all pay more attention to the situation inside the secret realm. This year's Freshman Cup of the 10 Schools League depends on this batch of talents. With 3 S ranks, why fear the Freshman Cup? Don't be so sure. A few years ago, Qingxiong University had an S-rank talent lose to an A-rank one. They're all just inexperienced kids with no combat experience. Anything can happen. The mentors were all discussing amongst themselves at this moment. Upon closer inspection, one could tell that these mentors possessed incredibly powerful auras. Many of them were existences that had been written into textbooks. Once the new students officially enrolled, they would be taken under the wings of these mentors. The mentors gathered here to observe, mostly scouting for suitable talents to teach. What's this candidate situation? Why are they just arriving now? At this moment, a mentor noticed a figure appearing at the entrance. Could they be late? A mentor guessed. Outrageous. No sense of time. They clearly don't take this exam seriously. Even if they pass, I won't accept them. Exactly. What is Yun Xiong doing? Such a student should be directly eliminated. Let's not jump to conclusions. Perhaps they were delayed by something on the way. The mentors clearly had quite a few opinions about this newly arrived student. And who could this student be? Naturally, it was Li Fan. This secret realm doesn't seem to have a level restriction. Upon entering the secret realm, Li Fan sensed the peculiarity of this world. Normally, upon entering a secret realm, one would feel a faint sense of restraint, and many realms even had level prompts. However, this Tai secret realm had none of that. Thinking about it, it made sense. A realm completely controlled by North Emperor University would have long been modified by god-level powerhouses. Perhaps it was even directly created by them. Setting aside his thoughts, Li Fan began to survey the situation in the secret realm. Looking up, there were mountains and ravines, dense forests like an abyss. Occasionally, sky-covering birds flew by, and terrifying beasts could be heard howling from the mountaintops. It was a scene straight out of a primeval wilderness. Seeing all this, Li Fan was somewhat shocked. It was as if an entire ancient wilderness had been transported here, majestic and awe-inspiring. However, there was a difference. These beasts only resembled the legendary ancient beasts in appearance. Their auras were far less terrifying. After all, it was just a secret realm for assessing new students. They couldn't have beasts of too high a level. But regardless, having such a secret realm was already quite impressive. As expected of the #1 martial arts university in Xia Nation, its foundation was incomparable to ordinary martial arts universities. Time to get started. Li Fan glanced at the countdown on the green token. 0. Duration 473107 inch. A total of 48 hours 3 days. Since the point token only displayed the number of points and not the ranking, he had to make full use of these 3 days to gain as many points as possible, at least ensuring he made it into the top 100. During this period, he definitely couldn't use the yin pupil. After all, even someone who hadn't transmigrated would know that exams always had proctors. The situation inside the secret realm was definitely observable from the outside. Those people were not like those foolish fat and skinny brothers. If he used the yin pupil, there was a high chance he would be seen through. Li Fan wasn't about to take that risk. However, thinking about it, with his current physical stats, he didn't need to use the yin pupil at all. With a burst of speed, Li Fan headed straight for a mountain ravine. The vegetation in the forest was dense, and one needed to be constantly vigilant against beasts that might spring out. However, for Li Fan, it seemed he didn't need to. Because after a series of battles, Li Fan had discovered that the beasts here, despite their huge size and intimidating appearance, were mostly within levels LV-15 to LV-30. For other candidates, this might be a considerable challenge, perhaps even requiring tactics or cooperation to handle with ease. But for Li Fan, it was nothing. Just now, a golden lion had pounced and bitten him, but it hadn't even broken his skin. Instead, the lion's teeth shattered and it wailed in misery before being easily taken down by a single punch from Li Fan. This lion probably never thought it would encounter such a tough bone to chew. And since the difficulty was too simple, Li Fan no longer felt the urgency. With such a wide variety of beasts here, this is a great place to stock up on provisions. Li Fan dragged a freshly cut golden lion leg, making plans in his head. He was running low on stored beast meat. And the beast meat on the market wasn't cheap. With so many beasts here, all of them huge, and with his 2 spatial rings, this was the perfect self-service restaurant. Successfully enrolling in North Emperor, while also harvesting a huge amount of food. This was truly a wonderful thing. Moreover, many materials from these beasts could be collected and sold in the market. And so, in the following time, Li Fan, holding a butcher knife, began selecting the best parts from the various beasts. Wherever he passed, no beast survived, and none remained whole. And just as Li Fan was processing a brute dragon, preparing to remove a pair of hind legs for future roasted ham, a 3-person team quietly crept nearby. 2 women and 1 man. The man had a feminine face and a tall, slender figure. The 2 women were also quite good-looking with decent figures, at least a 7 out of 10. Brother Lu, with that commotion up ahead, could it be a level 30 beast? One of the women asked the man timidly. She had a healing-type talent and was very weak in combat. The other girl also frowned and said, "Looking at these footprints, they look like a brute dragon's. A brute dragon is at least level 25. Maybe we should retreat." She had an auxiliary-type talent and was equally weak, hence her timidity. The 3 came from the same high school, and pressured by the need for combat, naturally formed a 3-person team. As for points, it was quite intelligent. If they worked together to take down a beast, the points would be distributed equally. It seemed that the admissions office of North Emperor University had long considered the issue of teaming up. What's there to be afraid of? You 2 just need to heal me from behind. It's just a mere level 30 beast. The man patted his chest confidently, flashing a charming smile. To be honest, he wasn't too confident about fighting a level 30 brute dragon. After all, he was only level 19. But in front of these 2 beauties, he really didn't want to lose face. At worst, he could just circle around the dragon for a bit, and then retreat with the girls. Hearing the man's words, the 2 women could only choose to believe him. After all, he was an A-rank battle-type talent, and in combat, he had more say. The 2 young women followed the man as they continued onward. Before long, the trio spotted traces of blood on the ground. They exchanged glances, a sense of relief washing over them, easing some of their earlier tension. Judging by the scene, the wild dragon was likely severely wounded, probably from a previous skirmish with another team of examinees. They stood a good chance of swooping in to claim the spoils. But as the 3 pushed through the underbrush and beheld the clearing before them, their spirits plummeted in bitter disappointment. Crouched beside the colossal corpse of the wild dragon sat a young man with a strikingly handsome, refined face. Clutching a butcher knife, the youth was patiently carving into the dragon's thigh, resembling a 5-star chef meticulously preparing his finest ingredients. It dawned on them that this beast had already been claimed by someone else. A level 30 wild dragon would yield a hefty sum of points. Just the thought of it stung with regret. Yet what was done, and there was no use dwelling on it. 3 options now lay before them. The first was to turn around and walk away. The second was to approach and extend an invitation, hoping he might join their team. After all, he was alone, and adding another member could boost their point collection efficiency. The final option was to snatch his points by force. The trio exchanged looks, ultimately agreeing that the second choice was the wisest. The reasoning was simple. Their team still lacked combat strength. If he were to join, it would undoubtedly be a boon. As for seizing his points, that was far too risky. The 2 girls had almost no combat ability. Against mindless beasts, they could manage by offering support from the rear. But facing another human was a different matter entirely. Unless the man was absolutely certain he could subdue the other, the opponent might escape, or worse, counterattack, and strip the girls of their own points. And so, clearing his throat, the man prepared to step forward and negotiate with the stranger. Ahem, hello there, fellow student. Li Fan turned at the sound of a newcomer and responded with warmth. Hello, is there something I can help you with? I'm Lu Yixiong, an A-rank combat type talent. Would you be interested in teaming up? I have 2 other teammates, both girls, one with a healing type talent and the other with a support type. The man smiled briefly, introducing himself before getting straight to the point. Hearing the word, Team Li Fan immediately waved his hand. No thanks, I haven't considered teaming up at all. Sorry. Teaming up held no appeal for him whatsoever. It would only slow down his pace in selecting ingredients. Seeing Li Fan's refusal, Lu Yixiong frowned. Most of the beasts here are high level. If you go solo, you won't always get lucky like this. Are you sure you don't want to reconsider? Li Fan was momentarily taken aback, so the other man thought he had stumbled upon this dragon by luck. But he couldn't be bothered to explain and simply said, I've made up my mind. Please find someone else. Sorry. Fine. Seeing Li Fan's unwavering stance, Lu Yixiong could only shake his head in disappointment, inwardly scoffing at Li Fan's arrogance and folly, thinking he had no clue about the bigger picture. Take care then, I'll be on my way. Without another word, he turned to leave. However, just as Lu Yixiong was about to depart, roar, a terrifying beastly howl suddenly erupted. In the next instant, trees behind them were mowed down like dry twigs as a level 30 wild dragon as massive as a small mountain lunged toward the 2 of them. Oh no, we're doomed. From a distance, the 2 girls witnessed the scene, their faces turning pale as they let out piercing screams. At that speed and distance, they were utterly powerless. Lu Yixiong was frozen in terror, his legs turning to jelly, his face ashen. At this speed, he couldn't dodge. That lunge would surely leave him gravely injured. Even if he survived, he'd be forced to withdraw. Was his journey on the path of the Northern Emperor destined to end here? How utterly infuriating. If only he'd known another dragon was lurking nearby, he would have turned tail immediately instead of trying to recruit Li Fan. But now it was too late for regrets. Li Fan, observing Lu Yixiong's utter despair, couldn't help but find it amusing. Was it really that serious? Then with a single hand on Lu Yixiong's shoulder, he whispered softly into his ear. Relax. The next second, Li Fan braced his stance, coiling his waist and legs with power, and threw a punch with his other hand. The air cracked with sonic booms as his fist hurtled toward the charging dragon. Boom, boom, boom. The moment his fist connected, devastation followed. The dragon's mountain-like body erupted into a mist of blood, and the terrifying force of his punch carved out a bloody path dozens of meters long. That single serious punch from Li Fan was devastatingly powerful. The sheer visual shock sent the 2 girls in the distance collapsing to the ground, their legs giving out from fear. Was that even humanly possible? As for Lu Yixiong, standing right in front of Li Fan, he felt a ringing in his ears. Turning to see the lingering blood mist and the utterly composed Li Fan, he collapsed onto the ground with a thud, a warm trickle running down his leg. Yes, he had been scared shitless. In that moment, he finally understood why Li Fan had declined to join. This guy was an absolute monster. One punch had literally disintegrated that dragon. This was no examinee. This was clearly a senior student. Student Lu Yu. On Li Fan's side, having dealt with the dragon, he moved to help Lu Yixiong up, but upon noticing his state, he wrinkled his nose and took a few steps back with a look of disgust. Lu Yixiong snapped back to reality, glancing at Li Fan and then nervously at the distant underbrush, utterly mortified. Well, this was just perfect. The dignity he'd carefully built up was now completely shattered in one go. Senior, thank you so much for saving me. Please take all my points. Lu Yixiong scrambled to his feet and began thanking Li Fan profusely. Embarrassment aside, he had to express gratitude for saving his life. Meanwhile, having mistaken Li Fan for a senior and knowing he was no match for him, he willingly handed over his points token. Li Fan, listening to the man's words, wore a puzzled expression. After transferring the points to his own token, he finally spoke up. Student Lu, I'm actually not a senior. I'm also an examinee. At those words, the man froze for a moment, then chuckled and waved his hand. Senior, stop joking. Li Fan, with that kind of strength, not a senior. No way he'd believe that. I really am not a senior. Senior, don't mess with me. I'm not stupid. Well, senior, my name is Lu Yixiong. If I'm lucky enough to get into the Northern Emperor Academy, I hope you'll look out for me. Li Fan was at a loss for words, feeling like he couldn't clear up this misunderstanding. And before he could even try, the 2 girls who had been hiding in the bushes nearby came rushing over. Senior, me too. My name is Xiao Ting. Please look out for me as well. And me? I'm Wang Xiaoning, a healing type talent. If I get in, I can heal you, senior. The chance to befriend a senior student was too tempting for the 2 girls to resist. At the same time, they dutifully handed over their points as well. Faced with this situation, Li Fan was momentarily at a loss for how to respond. After a brief moment of hesitation, having received the girls' points, Li Fan decided to play along and shamelessly said, Alright, I've got it all. Afterwards, the trio showered Li Fan with flattery, learned his name, and feeling confident they'd solidified the connection, they slowly departed to continue gathering points. The connection was secured, but they'd still need to get in first before it could be of any use. Watching them leave, a pang of guilt flashed through Li Fan's heart. But it didn't matter much since he never actually admitted to being a senior. That said, those three had surprisingly few points. Still, every little bit counts, and they'd come to him of their own accord. He'd be a fool to refuse. Glancing at his current points, 9987. He was on the verge of breaking 10,000. Too bad he couldn't see the other examinees' standings to know his rank. Time to keep hunting. Li Fan quickly cleaned up the battlefield before vanishing once more into the depths of the jungle. In the meeting room. Excellent. Barring any surprises, those three S-rank candidates should take the top 3 spots. Their points are already showing a clear gap, all surpassing 15,000. It's still early. Not even a day has passed. A current lead doesn't guarantee a final victory. Don't forget those second-year brats haven't made their move yet. True. The real tears will only show on the second day. It's too early to draw conclusions. The mentors' gazes were mostly fixed on Lin Yue and the other 2 S-rank talents. As expected, the 3 S-rank candidates held the top 3 positions just as the mentors had predicted. However, because their attention was almost exclusively on these 3, they had somewhat overlooked the other examinees. If they had been more observant, they would have noticed that Li Fan's name had already appeared in the 10th position. Meanwhile, outside the secret realm, dozens of students wearing Beatty University attire stood in perfect formation. If Li Fan were present, he would have recognized one familiar figure among them. It was Gu Quan. This group of students was the senior students the examinees would face shortly. For the next 3 days, you will be spending your time inside. Today, you are forbidden from attacking the examinees. From tomorrow, you may act freely. But remember, exercise restraint. Do not injure the examinees too severely. The mentor spoke sternly, outlining the general rules. The opportunity to teach the newcomers a lesson had the senior students rubbing their hands in anticipation, unusually excited and eager. At Beatty University, competition between lower and upperclassmen had always existed, and even duels were common. This was actually an atmosphere encouraged by the school. Only in a competitive environment could one grow faster. For them, this was a chance to teach those S-rank examinees a lesson. Even if they couldn't win in the future, once those S-rank examinees became big shots, they could proudly boast to their friends, "I once dominated that S-rank talent." Unlike the other seniors, Gu Quan seemed rather distracted. He didn't really want to be here. Given the choice, he'd rather go farm a dungeon or even get a massage and soak his feet. The only reason he was here was because he had been unlucky enough to be selected by lottery. At that moment, he suddenly thought of Li Fan. If that brat were inside, he'd be more than happy to go in and teach him a proper lesson. Just thinking about Li Fan's provocative sneer from that day ignited a fire of anger within him. His own precious cousin, such a fine girl, had been stolen by a guy like that. But unfortunately, Li Fan, with his D-rank talent, didn't even have the qualifications to enter this secret realm. He wouldn't get the chance to teach him a lesson. In all likelihood, Li Fan had probably been eliminated early in the special recruitment zone. An ordinary physical enhancement talent trying to pass the special recruitment. Wasn't that just a pipe dream? Alright, everyone head inside. As the mentor's voice fell, the group filed in one after another. The moment this group of seniors entered, a voice echoed through the sky of the secret realm. Upperclassmen have entered. Examinees, be on alert. As the voice sounded, all the examinees in the secret realm couldn't help but look up at the sky, a hint of solemnity deepening on their faces. These seniors were far more terrifying than the level 30 beasts in the secret realm. If they encountered even one of them, there was no need to think. They should just run. In a corner of the dense forest, Lu Yixiong and 2 other girls had extremely complex expressions on their faces. Upperclassmen entering. Only now. Then that Li Fan earlier. The trio gradually began to recall their conversation with Li Fan. Damn, Li Fan really wasn't a senior. For a moment, the 3 of them had dark expressions. They had been sucking up to the wrong person. Forget it. Li Fan's strength is remarkable. If we can befriend him, that would still be a good choice, Lu Yixiong said with a frown. Hearing this, the trio felt much better. Meanwhile, Li Fan was leisurely roasting a beast leg on an open space by a small river. As he had traveled, the beast meat in his spatial ring had accumulated, reaching the expected quantity. For the next period, he could focus on earning points and collecting valuable materials from the beasts. Speaking of points, Li Fan's points had already reached an impressive 12,000. On the leaderboard, he had also climbed to the 8th position. Still too slow. Li Fan couldn't see the rankings, so he wasn't satisfied with the rate his points were increasing. The higher the beast's level, the more points it granted. But the secret realm was vast, and most beasts were still around level 20. The density of level 30 beasts was low, requiring a long time to encounter a few. It seems I'll have to go meet those seniors. Li Fan's eyes narrowed. According to the rules, defeating any senior would double his points. If he could keep doubling his points, not to mention the top 100, even the first place would be within reach. But the problem was, These seniors had no visible markers. If he encountered one, it would be hard to identify them. So he had to adopt the principle of rather kill 1,000 by mistake than let one go. He would simply attack anyone he saw to steal their points. With decent luck, encountering 3 or 4 of them should secure his place in the top 100. Just as Li Fan was lost and thought the smell of something burning reached his nose. Damn, how could I get distracted while BB-cheing? What a waste of good meat. Li Fan hurriedly tried to salvage it. But just as he was about to cut away the burnt parts, several fire serpents suddenly shot out from the distance, scorching the surrounding trees. One of the fire serpents, by unfortunate coincidence, passed right through the ham hock in Li Fan's hand. The salvageable meat was instantly turned into charcoal. The next second, a young man came chasing after. Judging by his disappointed expression as he looked around, he was clearly pursuing something, but had lost track of it. Li Fan recognized him at a glance. This was one of the 3 S-rank talents who had entered with Lin Yue. The young man also noticed Li Fan at that moment. The young man frowned softly. He had some impression of Li Fan as he was the only person Lin Yue had interacted with at the stadium. But he remembered, wasn't Li Fan an examinee from the special recruitment zone? How was he here? And he looked quite relaxed. He paused for a moment, deciding not to overthink it, and turned to leave, intending to continue hunting other beasts. But just as he was about to go, a voice sounded from behind him. Stop! Li Fan could not tolerate this any longer. He had ruined his ham, and now this person simply intended to walk away. Something wrong. The young man turned back, glancing indifferently at Li Fan. Li Fan tossed the charred ham in front of the young man, placed his hands on his hips, and demanded, "Playing dumb are we? I spent so long roasting this and you just ruined it." The young man frowned. Though he knew he was in the wrong, he truly did not wish to waste any more time on Li Fan. "Once the exam is over, I'll compensate you with a new one. My name is Di-yun. Remember it, and come find me then." With that, the young man turned to leave. But before he could take a step, Li Fan called out again, "Just compensate me with a new one. Do you have any idea how much effort I put into that ham? How much of my time did it take? A ham has a price, but time is priceless." Di-yun's expression gradually darkened. He had initially assumed that this old acquaintance of Lin Yue's would have a decent character. He never expected him to be a shameless scoundrel. Was this a deliberate provocation? "What exactly do you want?" Di-yun gritted his teeth. If Li Fan continued to act like a rogue, he wouldn't mind teaching him a lesson. Li Fan shrugged and said with a smile, "I, Li Fan, am not one to be petty. How about this? You give me your points, and we'll call it even. What do you say?" At these words, Di-yun's face turned completely cold. So this man had ulterior motives targeting his points. Instantly, fiery serpents began to materialize and coil around Di-yun. Li Fan was a specially admitted examinee with unknown abilities, so Di-yun naturally wouldn't take him lightly. "You asked for this," Di-yun said coldly. He had initially been reluctant to battle someone like Li Fan, who was hiding in this place grilling ham and slacking off, especially since Li Fan probably didn't even have many points. But since Li Fan had taken the initiative to target him, he couldn't blame him for being ruthless. This man is truly a rogue. Indeed, hiding here to grill meat and slacking off during the assessment is one thing, but now he's even eyeing people's points. This kid has kicked an iron plate. Di-yun will make him pay. Strange, why does this examinee look a bit familiar? I remember now. Isn't he the one who arrived late? Nonsense. What is Yun Xiong doing over there letting someone like this in? I suggest we just send him to Qin Xiong next door. Haha, I actually find this kid quite interesting. What did he say his name was again? Not sure, didn't catch it earlier. No need to bother learning it anyway. In a moment, Di-yun will teach him a lesson he'll never forget, and then he'll be kicked out of the secret realm. Inside the conference room, many mentors had noticed the situation with Di-yun. Watching Li Fan's shameless provocation combined with his earlier tardiness, the mentors were all in an uproar, complaining amongst themselves. All the other examinees were desperately fighting fierce beasts to earn points. But Li Fan, he was just grilling barbecue, completely slacking off. Grilling was one thing, but he even dared to provoke a promising talent they had their eyes on. It was utterly unreasonable. Many mentors hoped that Di-yun would teach Li Fan a harsh lesson. Back to Li Fan. Seeing that Di-yun seemed about to make a move, he grew rather excited and chuckled in response. "Oh, I asked for this. What, you ruined my ham, and now you're going to steal my points too?" He had never fought an S-rank talent before. He wondered if his current physical body was enough to defeat him. One punch. Or two. Di-yun didn't respond to Li Fan's words. Instead, his face was full of contempt, and the fire serpents swirling around him grew even more intense. At such close range, he wouldn't even put Lin Yue in his eyes. What could a mere Li Fan possibly do? Although he didn't know Li Fan's talent, he didn't think Li Fan could be any stronger than Lin Yue. One move. He was confident he could take Li Fan down. Roar. Just as Di-yun was about to strike, a tremendous crash echoed from the edge of the woods. The next second, an armored rhinoceros with charred skin, now in a frenzy, burst through the trees, charging violently towards a distant direction. Judging by its aura, it had already reached level 30. Di-yun's eyes lit up at the sight. This was the very armored rhinoceros he had been hunting. He had thought it was lost for good after Li Fan interfered, but it had unexpectedly delivered itself right to him. And compared to Li Fan, he clearly valued this armored rhinoceros more. So ignoring Li Fan, he leaped into the air, waved his hand, and the fire serpents on his body surged forth, roaring towards the armored rhinoceros. But in the very next second, he heard a terrifying sonic boom. When he snapped back to reality, the frenzied rhinoceros had already turned into a mist of blood. And before the blood mist stood Li Fan, his fists still extended. Li Fan looked at him coldly, a glimmer of red light flashing in his eyes. What, trying to run? At that moment, Di Yun's pupils constricted and a cold sweat broke out over him. Li Fan now resembled a terrifying god of slaughter, his oppressive aura overwhelmingly powerful. He couldn't help but swallow hard, looking again at the blood mist. Was this really the result of a single punch from Li Fan? And if he had been in that armored rhinoceros's place? His fate? He dared not think further. Meanwhile, the conference room was dead silent. It wasn't until a few seconds later that gasps of astonishment erupted. How is this possible? This kid. Such incredible strength. Am I seeing this right? Is he really an examinee? He turned a level 30 armored rhinoceros into a blood mist with one punch. What terrifying physical power. A physical type talent. It's been so long since I've seen a physical type talent this impressive. This physical talent feels even more terrifying than Wang Tong's back then. What level is he at right now? If he hasn't reached level 20. What a promising talent. It's a shame though, it's only a physical type talent. They're often impressive in the early stages, but they fall off later. Their potential is capped. Interesting. I remember now, he said his name is Li Fan. Is he the Li Fan ranked 8th on the points leaderboard? Check this Li Fan's level. If he hasn't surpassed level 30, I suggest we admit him. He's a promising prospect. The mentors were all shocked to their feet, their eyes filled with disbelief. They had never imagined that the seemingly slacker Li Fan could unleash such terrifying power. And everyone's attitude towards Li Fan had now completely flipped. They were now praising him as a promising prospect left and right. You are strong, Di Yun said with extreme caution, quickly creating distance between himself and Li Fan. Earlier he had thought he could overpower Li Fan in close combat. But now he was worried he might end up like that armored rhinoceros. He could only rely on the advantage of his long-range flame attacks to try and fend off Li Fan. In fact, the thought of fleeing had even crossed his mind. No wonder a specially admitted student like Li Fan had been allowed in here. His strength was genuinely formidable. And now he had already guessed Li Fan's talent. It was related to physical augmentation. Seeing Di Yun's grave expression and the deliberate distance he had created, Li Fan couldn't help but laugh. Do you think you're safe now, eh? Bang! Li Fan bent his legs slightly, and like a cannonball he shot towards Di Yun with incredible speed. Not good. Di Yun's expression changed drastically as the fire serpents around him instantly coalesced into a blazing shield enveloping his entire body. Yet evidently such a measure would prove utterly futile. Boom. A single fist pierced through, shattering the fire shield in an instant. Di Yun was sent flying backward dozens of meters like a kite with its string cut. At this moment, aside from searing agony, Di Yun was practically devoid of all sensation. What was most terrifying, however, was that from his perspective, Li Fan's next punch was already upon him. Wait! Mid-flight, Di Yun mustered every ounce of strength to let out a desperate shout, then crashed hard beneath a colossal tree. Li Fan's fist halted mere centimeters from Di Yun's face. Spitting out a mouthful of blood, Di Yun slowly extended the points token from his waist, offering it forward. Take it. Li Fan harbored no murderous intent. The punch he had thrown was deliberately restrained. Seeing Di Yun being so cooperative, a smile gradually crept back onto Li Fan's face. He accepted the points token and initiated the transfer. Wouldn't this have been much simpler from the start? Then you could have spared yourself a punch. Di Yun was left speechless, a vein throbbing on his forehead. He wanted to retort, but considering the terror that was Li Fan, he ultimately held his tongue. What rotten luck. He had accidentally damaged a monster's, roasted him, only to have his prey smashed to pieces by the fiend, his points stripped clean, and to top it all off he got punched, and then lectured. Back in the meeting room, silence had once again descended. The mentors' eyes were bulging wider than ever. They had all witnessed Di Yun's strength before. They had assumed the duel would take at least dozens of exchanges to decide. Yet the battle concluded with such startling simplicity. It was a complete and utter one-sided rout. Di Yun couldn't even withstand a single encounter against Li Fan. As for Li Fan's true combat prowess, everyone was plunged into a new wave of contemplation. Tisk worthy of an S-rank talent indeed. That's a hefty amount of points. I'm not one to take advantage of others. Here's some healing medicine, though they're just cheap stuff. Consider it making up the difference for your points. Delighted by Di Yun's nearly 20,000 points, Li Fan promptly pulled a few almost expired healing pills from his spatial ring and tossed them over. Di Yun dared not utter a word of complaint. He accepted the pills, stored them away, and then retrieved a few pills of his own from his spatial ring, swallowing them down. Within a few breaths, Di-Yun's complexion improved remarkably. Shortly after, he could even stand up on his own as if nothing had happened. Witnessing such efficacy, Li Fan's eyes widened in astonishment. This medicine is probably quite expensive, huh? I only have a few pills left, and they're for emergencies. Seeing the look in Li Fan's eyes, Di-Yun hastily tucked the pills away in fright. These things were truly not cheap. His father had only given him 3. He certainly didn't want Li Fan to snatch these away too. Li Fan curled his lip in disdain. You're thinking too small. Do I look like the kind of person who just goes around robbing people? I was just curious. It's not like I don't have some healing pills of my own. With that, Li Fan turned and ambled back towards the riverbank, ready to roast another ham. Di-Yun watched Li Fan's retreating figure silent for a long moment. After a considerable pause, he finally followed. Brother Li Fan, I was in the wrong earlier. Allow me to apologize. Di-Yun approached Li Fan and spoke politely, his entire demeanor a stark contrast to his earlier aloofness. Li Fan waved his hand dismissively. All right, water under the bridge. We're even now. If you've got something to say, just spit it out. Di-Yun gave an awkward smile. Brother Li Fan is truly perceptive. I do have a matter to discuss. Brother Li Fan, with your formidable strength, I believe we could team up and challenge those senior students. If we do, both our points will skyrocket. Indeed, he was a man who knew when to bend. Even though his points had been completely drained by Li Fan, he could still compose himself and seek cooperation. He had actually considered targeting the senior students long ago, but their strength was terrifying and he lacked the confidence. Now, having encountered a monster like Li Fan, if he could join forces with Li Fan, his chances would improve drastically. Although his points were currently 0, defeating a few seniors would see them restored quickly, perhaps even surpassing his previous total. Hearing this, Li Fan immediately lost interest. Teaming up again. Brother D, I've already planned to challenge the seniors. However, I don't need a partner. It's too troublesome. To be honest with you, Brother D, I can take on 10 of those senior students by myself. Di-Yun, huh? Di-Yun was dumbfounded. He could take on 10. Wasn't that a bit too arrogant? Yet recalling Li Fan's unfathomable strength, maybe not 10, but he might genuinely stand a chance in a one-on-one. Ultimately, it was his own presumption. In that case, Brother Li Fan, I'll take my leave. Let's meet outside the secret realm. I'll personally host a feast for you then, and offer a proper apology. Seeing that Li Fan had no intention of teaming up, Di-Yun had nothing more to say. After exchanging pleasantries, he turned and departed. His immediate priority was to earn back the points he had lost. Meanwhile, in the meeting room, the mentors who had been listening to the conversation all shook their heads. Interesting. These two lads actually have their sights set on those little rascals. Although both are quite strong, especially this Li Fan fellow, they're still not quite up to par against those sophomores. Exactly. Those sophomores, the lowest level among them is over 30, right? Instead of running when they encounter them, they want to pick a fight. I have a feeling those two are going to suffer a great loss. No matter, consider it a lesson to temper their arrogance. Even if their points are wiped out tomorrow, they'll still have a day left to qualify. True. However, this Li Fan hasn't even shown his full strength yet. I'm rather looking forward to seeing him clash with those little rascals. After Di-Yun departed, Li Fan continued roasting the ham, feeling quite pleased with himself. He hadn't expected to be so lucky. To think he'd encountered an S-rank talent. Under normal circumstances, with Di-Yun's strength, his point ranking would likely be near the very top. Having now taken Di-Yun's points, Li Fan's own score was undoubtedly among the highest, possibly even contending for first or second place. And indeed, as Li Fan suspected, his points had already surged to the top, leading the second place Lin Yue by nearly 10,000 points, a veritable landslide advantage. Seems my own points are nothing to scoff at, or I may have overestimated the others, Li Fan mused to himself. He hadn't been able to see the rankings before, so he'd assumed the leaders might have amassed tens of thousands of points by now. Yet upon seeing the numbers, even a figure like Di-Yun only held a few thousand more points than him. At this rate, even without challenging the senior students, securing a spot in the top 100 was all but guaranteed. But Li Fan had already set his sights on a new goal. Since he was already at the forefront, why not aim for the very top and claim first place outright? Being the top freshman would likely come with more resources upon enrollment, not to mention a pleasant surprise for his old rival Lin Yue. So what if she was an S-rank divine archer? The old dog still knows new tricks. As he pondered his plans, the ham in his hands was already perfectly roasted. Sprinkled with pepper, salt, and cumin, slathered with a soul-stirring secret sauce, a single bite was pure bliss. Even the neighboring mentors were drooling with envy. Indeed, ever since Li Fan displayed his astonishing prowess, the mentors' attention had expanded beyond the 3 S-rank talents to include him as well. From their omniscient vantage point, it was starkly evident that while other candidates were locked in tense, perilous battles against fierce beasts, Li Fan's scene was one of serene tranquility, a veritable bite of the secret realm. Yet paradoxically, his points were still ranked first. Who could make sense of that? Naturally, this sparked a lively discussion in the meeting room. You know the kid's got a real knack for barbecue. It looks pretty appetizing. Indeed, simple ingredients, but it seems to have a unique flavor. With that technique, he's clearly had plenty of practice. The way he devours that meat is truly hearty. Oh, I like his style. I'm calling dibs on this kid. His eating manner is quite appealing. It's making me hungry just watching. Ahem. Everyone compose yourselves. This is an examination, not a food show. Having eaten his fill, Li Fan didn't linger. He was ready to officially begin his hunt. Whether he'd encounter the senior students remained to be seen, but his goal for the first day was clear: widen the point gap. What followed was a truly brutal spectacle. Li Fan moved through the forest like a phantom, a silent specter. Everywhere he passed, no beast was left standing. Any team unfortunate enough to cross his path was left battered and bruised, their points reduced to 0. In just a single afternoon, Li Fan had earned the moniker Madman among the examinees. There was no other way to put it. The main reason was that every time Li Fan appeared to seize points, he would first offer a hypocritical greeting, muttering apologies before striking. And then he'd go in with ruthless efficiency. Regardless of gender, anyone who resisted would leave with a swollen face and blackened eyes. There was no other outcome. Some unfortunate souls not only lost their points, but also had the materials from their freshly slain beasts stolen. For a time, the dense forest was rife with anxiety and fear. Damn it. Ran into that madman again. In less than half a day, he's robbed me twice. Same for our squad. A whole day of hunting beasts and all our points are gone. That guy is absolutely insane. He's all brute force. I saw him punch an ironclad dragon, a level 25 beast, to pieces with my own eyes. That terrifying. Could he be a senior? Senior my ass. Seniors don't steal points. If you lose to them, your points just reset. That madman is definitely an examinee. This madman is truly someone you don't mess with. Does anyone know his name? Once we're out of the secret realm, I want to see his ranking. Don't know his name, but he looks kind of familiar. I think I saw him in the special recruitment area earlier. I remember now. He's that guy who was talking to Goddess Lin. Unbelievable. Why is a specially recruited student even in the secret realm? I thought they were exempt. Screw this. I can't take it anymore. I suggest we form a large group and drive that madman out. Exactly. We can't let him keep robbing us like this. Word spread like wildfire. Li Fan's deeds began to circulate among all the examinees. In fact, many squads had already reached a consensus. The moment they spotted the madman, they'd send a signal, and everyone would converge to join forces and expel Li Fan from the assessment. Madman. In a corner of the forest, Lin Yue was cleaning up a battlefield, frowning as she murmured the name. She had just encountered a squad. She'd learned of this figure from them. It piqued her curiosity and surprise. From the information gathered, this madman wasn't one of the 2 S ranks who had arrived with her, but someone else entirely. She'd originally thought her only competition would be those 2. Now it seemed there was another. A dark horse emerging from the shadows. As expected of the Northern Emperor's institution. Truly a place where dragons and tigers lie hidden. At that moment, she began to look forward to crossing paths with this madman. Elsewhere, Di Yun also heard the legend of the madman. He guessed it was Li Fan immediately, for he was likely the first victim. Hearing that many squads were planning to team up against Li Fan, he couldn't help but laugh. With Li Fan's strength, forming a group was just delivering themselves to him. He didn't care about the others. As for himself, if he ever caught wind of Li Fan's whereabouts, he'd make a wide detour. He'd already been robbed once. He'd finally managed to scrounge up some points again. He couldn't afford to lose them. As Di Yun was lost in thought, a familiar figure suddenly appeared before him. He Wenguang. It was the other S-rank talent who had come with him. The moment he saw He Wenguang, Di Yun tensed up with caution. He Wenguang, like himself, was a fire-attributed S-rank talent. However, He Wenguang hailed from a prestigious family, with far superior resources compared to his own. Thus, Di Yun was extremely wary of him. What a coincidence running into you here. What's with the look? I'm not here to cause you trouble. He Wenguang spread his hands, looking exasperated at Di Yun's defensive stance. You know my rival is Lin Yue. He Wenguang continued, a playful smirk curling at the corner of his mouth. Di Yun's face darkened. The implication of He Wenguang's words was clear. He had never considered Di Yun a worthy opponent. This wasn't the first time He Wenguang had shown him such disdain. Even before entering the secret realm, He Wenguang had told Di Yun this quite bluntly. Then go find her. I'm leaving, Di Yun said, unwilling to clash with He Wenguang for now, turning to leave. But just as he was about to walk away, He Wenguang called out to him. Why rush off? I wanted to ask you about someone. There's a guy with the nickname Madman going around. Have you seen him? Di Yun's ears perked up at this, his spirit instantly reignited. So this He Wenguang had his sights set on Li Fan. That was just perfect. Of course I know him. I've even crossed swords with him once. He's certainly a formidable opponent. Di Yun turned to look at He Wenguang and said calmly. He Wenguang smiled. And who emerged victorious between you two? Di Yun, though reluctant to admit it, had no desire to conceal the truth. He did. Hearing this, a flicker of keen interest appeared on He Wenguang's face. Impressive. To have bested you means he possesses some real skill. It seems not all among these examinees are mere rabble. Do you know where he is? Diyan curled his lip. How would I know? If you want to find him, go look for him yourself. He Wenguang's arrogance was truly insufferable. If it weren't for the fact that He Wenguang genuinely had some skill, Diyan would have already smashed his fist right into that smug face of his. But I'll warn you now, this madman's strength far surpasses yours and mine. If you end up getting beaten, don't come crying to me about it. Diyan continued. The smile on He Wenguang's face froze for a moment before he said, don't lump me in the same category as you. However, since you've said that, I'm now quite eager to go and test this madman myself. I wonder how many of my strikes he can withstand. As he spoke, flames erupted beneath He Wenguang's feet, and he vanished from the spot in an instant. Tisk, who does he think he's showing off for? When he actually faces Li Fan, let's see if he wets his pants in fear. Diyan curled his lip again, thoroughly disgusted by He Wenguang's arrogant posturing. As for the impending clash between He Wenguang and Li Fan, he was unquestionably rooting for Li Fan. He knew all too well just how terrifying Li Fan's true strength was. Even someone like He Wenguang might not necessarily be a match for Li Fan. Meanwhile, on the other side, Li Fan's reputation had not only spread among the examinees. It was also beginning to circulate among the senior students. At this moment, the seniors were still idling about at the very edge of the dense forest, taking in the scenery and gossiping about which of the new juniors they'd spotted looked attractive. After all, the rules stipulated that they couldn't make a move until the second day. Going inside now, even if they saw the examinees, they wouldn't be able to act. So they simply chose not to enter. Who would have thought a dark horse would emerge this year? I just asked around, or I heard this madman has a body enhancement type talent. A body enhancement talent? Isn't that a low-tier talent? How could that be enough to go on a killing spree? That's in the late game. In the early stages, body type talents are still pretty solid. Have you all forgotten about senior brother Wang Tong? True enough. But if this guy could reach the level of senior brother Wang Tong, that would be seriously impressive. I heard that when senior brother Wang Tong was recruited through the special admission, he was only level 20, yet he managed to kill a level 35 violent Tiger King. His combat power was astonishingly monstrous. If this madman turns out to be a replica of senior brother Wang Tong, I think we need to take him seriously. Killing a level 35 at level 20. Are you serious? You've been at North Emperor for almost 2 years now, and you've never heard of senior brother Wang Tong's deeds. He was quite the celebrity 2 years ago. It's a pity that he's been held back by his talent's limitations, so he's somewhat faded into obscurity now. At this moment, the seniors were all discussing the situation of this dark horse, the madman. Gu Quan happened to be among them. Going up against a level 35 at level 20 is something only senior brother Wang Tong could do. As for this madman, forget it, it's impossible. Gu Quan crossed his arms and said calmly. As soon as Gu Quan spoke, the chatter around them gradually died down. The reason was simple. Among everyone present, Gu Quan was probably the only one who had actually fought Wang Tong. His words carried considerably more weight. But rather than saying he had fought Wang Tong, it would be more accurate to say he had sought Wang Tong's guidance. After all, Wang Tong, as a student in his graduating year, had a level far higher than Gu Quan's. Having had that opportunity was a matter of fate. As someone with an A-grade melee combat talent, Gu Quan favored a bold and aggressive fighting style. So shortly after enrolling that year, he signed up for a club comprised entirely of melee combat talents. Coincidentally, Wang Tong came to the club looking for someone that day, and Gu Quan, mustering his courage, went up to ask for pointers. He had to admit after that battle he was thoroughly and completely subdued. The sense of oppression was terrifying to the extreme. Wang Tong had effortlessly defeated him using just a single finger, which felt immensely humiliating. Even to this day, he harbored a complex emotion towards those with body enhancement type talents. Both a deep-seated loathing and a hint of fear. Leave this madman to me. Don't any of you fight me for this. Gu Quan was silent for a brief moment before uttering these words, a glint of determination flashing in his eyes. He would use this person called the madman as a warm-up to excise his inner demon. In a few more years, he would go and personally seek revenge against Wang Tong. As Gu Quan spoke, many people nodded in agreement. As one of the strongest individuals present, they had no intention of vying with Gu Quan for this target. In the meeting room, watching everything unfold in the secret realm, the instructors were all at a loss for words, yet simultaneously filled with anticipation. I truly didn't expect a single Li Fan to make this assessment so lively. He's not going to be another Wang Tong, is he? In my opinion, this kid's potential is even higher than Wang Tong's. Let's not talk about potential for now. This kid has made too many enemies. Moreover, once those sophomores enter the fray tomorrow, he's likely to be in serious trouble. Whether he can even advance to the next round is a question. To be honest, this kid is quite strong, but it's a pity he's all brawn and no brains. Who hunts for points like that? He doesn't discriminate at all, attacking anyone he sees. Let's see how he handles this in the end. But regardless of his final score, I'm claiming this kid. By the way, have we found any information on this Li Fan yet? What's his deal anyway? We asked Yunxiong but got no reply. He's probably busy with the special admissions over there. We'll likely have to wait until tomorrow or the day after to find out. Yunxiong hasn't replied. Then asked the admissions office. Forget it. I can't be bothered to deal with those people from the admissions office. We'll just wait. It's not urgent anyway. So they had gone to fetch reinforcements. Li Fan found this utterly exasperating. These examinees had actually banded together to come and settle the score with him. Was this really necessary? At that moment, another person stepped out from the group, wielding a massive hammer, and pointed at Li Fan, declaring, "You bastard! Spit out all our points." You? Before he could even finish his sentence, the mount beneath Li Fan let out a thunderous roar, startling him so much that his face turned pale, and he staggered back a few steps. It was actually a level 30 explosive tiger beast. After glancing at the crowd around him, he regained his confidence, and continued, "You've incurred everyone's wrath. Don't think you can stay in this secret realm any longer. I advise you to hand over your points token and leave on your own, and you might just avoid a beating." As he finished speaking, many in the crowd chimed in agreement. That's right. Hand over your points and get out of the secret realm. Exactly. Be smart and get lost. You thief. Did you hear us? The voices grew louder and the group's aggressive demeanor intensified. However, despite all the fierce shouting, not a single person dared to make the first move. This sight made Li Fan even more exasperated. To be honest, facing so many people at once was somewhat troublesome. But unfortunately, these people lacked unity and were not a solid force. Although they all came for revenge, each seemed to have their own reservations, otherwise at least one would have dared to act. Therefore, these people could be collectively referred to as a motley crowd. Li Fan was not in the least afraid of such a group. Fighting 100 alone was a piece of cake. Li Fan exerted a slight pressure with his legs, and the explosive tiger beast beneath him instantly let out a shocking roar. The terrifying aura brought the shouting to an abrupt halt and forced everyone to take an involuntary step back. Folks, I think we should skip the pleasantries. If you have the guts, come and take the points. The token is right here. Li Fan then took off his points token, holding it up high, and smiled at the crowd, his eyes full of provocation. Upon hearing this, everyone was burning with anger, their faces darkening. But despite their anger, they all just exchanged hesitant glances, seemingly unwilling to be the first to stick their neck out. While they hesitated, Li Fan made his move. "Since you're not making a move, I will." As his words faded in the blink of an eye, Li Fan vanished from his spot. This sight terrified all 100 people present, their faces changing drastically. Where did he go? Not good. Where is he? Did he run away? For a moment, a frantic uproar erupted from the group, all searching for Li Fan. But by the time he reappeared in their sight, it was already too late. Because Li Fan was already right in their midst. Shing. Boom. Bang. In an instant within the crowd, Li Fan's amiable smile terrified everyone, and various attack effects went flying everywhere. However, these attacks only served to injure their own allies, posing no threat to Li Fan whatsoever. Instead, Li Fan was like a wolf among sheep, moving with incredible speed. With a kick for each, they were sent flying into the air one after another. When they landed, their points tokens had already fallen into Li Fan's hands. In no time, most of the 100+ people were thrown into disarray, each one bruised and battered. Those in slightly better condition were already scared out of their wits and fleeing. Meanwhile, Li Fan's small cloth pouch was now filled with over 100 points tokens. Tisk, you guys really have so few points. Li Fan began transferring the points. But to his annoyance, their points were pitifully low. If it weren't for the sheer quantity, he wouldn't have bothered transferring them one by one. Li Fan's words brought tears to the eyes of the bruised and battered crowd. Damn it. Of course our points are few. Didn't you rob us all yesterday? Even when harvesting leeks, you should let them grow a bit before cutting. But then again, it wasn't like Li Fan had sought them out this time. They had brought it upon themselves. Now they were truly at a loss for tears. Why did they even provoke Li Fan, whose strength was so terrifying? Meanwhile, in the meeting room, the mentors watching this scene were all stunned. Initially, when they saw a large group going to seek revenge on Li Fan, they thought it would be an interesting spectacle. But when it came to actual combat, it was another one-sided situation. Over 100 people and not one dared to take the lead, only to be utterly defeated by Li Fan 1 against 100. If these people were to enter Beatty, they would be too ashamed to admit they were students of Beatty University. Li Fan's strength is truly off the charts. If it weren't for those sophomore brats, he would have completely ruined this assessment. Indeed, with the way Li Fan is collecting points, by the third day, a third of the examinees probably won't have more than 1,000 points. Yeah, he's another Wong Tong. Having Li Fan's strength in this mix is too unfair to the other examinees. By the way, what's the situation with those sophomores now? The mentors discussed animatedly, full of mixed feelings about Li Fan. His presence was indeed affecting the balance of this assessment. The only saving grace now was that this bug, named Li Fan, could be fixed by the sophomores. And speaking of the senior students, at this moment on the outskirts of the dense forest, a massive group of figures could be seen. Damn, Finally, it's the second day. Finally, we can make a move. Get ready. Get ready. Juniors, are you ready to meet your seniors? Damn it. Finally, we can do something. Don't any of you steal those 3S ranks, they're mine. Start early, finish early. Let's go, let's go. Brothers, if you see any pretty junior girls, remember to get their contact info for me. I have a friend who needs a wife. That's right. These figures were precisely the sophomore seniors who had been waiting for a long time. After a day of waiting, they could finally formally enter the dense forest and mountains to spar with the examinees. For them, the wait had been unbearable. And shortly after the seniors entered, wails and screams began to echo from various parts of the secret realm. Senior, please spare us. We really don't have any points. Run. The seniors are here. Senior sister, you're too beautiful for fighting. How about letting us get a 1-minute head start? Run. There are seniors chasing us from behind. Arg. I'll fight you all. Senior, please show mercy. I was just joking. Damn it. I ran into the madman yesterday, and today I run into seniors the moment I open my eyes. What kind of rotten luck is this? The arrival of the sophomore seniors was like wolves entering a flock of sheep, devastating and overwhelming. Many examinees were defeated in an instant, their points reduced to 0. Before long, the dense forest was filled with fear of the senior students. This scene was well within the mentors' expectations. The strength of the sophomores was simply on another level. And this was the time to test the comprehensive abilities of the examinees. In a new environment, full of dangers, cooperation and combat were crucial skills. But the ability to flee, hide, and survive was even more important. So they had gone to fetch reinforcements. Li Fan found this utterly exasperating. These examinees had actually banded together to come and settle the score with him. Was this really necessary? At that moment, another person stepped out from the group, wielding a massive hammer, and pointed at Li Fan, declaring, "You bastard! Spit out all our points." You? Before he could even finish his sentence, the mount beneath Li Fan let out a thunderous roar, startling him so much that his face turned pale, and he staggered back a few steps. It was actually a level 30 explosive tiger beast. After glancing at the crowd around him, he regained his confidence and continued, "You've incurred everyone's wrath. Don't think you can stay in this secret realm any longer. I advise you to hand over your points token and leave on your own, and you might just avoid a beating." As he finished speaking, many in the crowd chimed in agreement. That's right. Hand over your points and get out of the secret realm. Exactly. Be smart and get lost. You thief. Did you hear us? The voices grew louder and the group's aggressive demeanor intensified. However, despite all the fierce shouting, not a single person dared to make the first move. This sight made Li Fan even more exasperated. To be honest, facing so many people at once was somewhat troublesome. But unfortunately, these people lacked unity and were not a solid force. Although they all came for revenge, each seemed to have their own reservations, otherwise at least one would have dared to act. Therefore, these people could be collectively referred to as a motley crowd. Li Fan was not in the least afraid of such a group. Fighting 100 alone was a piece of cake. Li Fan exerted a slight pressure with his legs, and the explosive tiger beast beneath him instantly let out a shocking roar. The terrifying aura brought the shouting to an abrupt halt and forced everyone to take an involuntary step back. Folks, I think we should skip the pleasantries. If you have the guts, come and take the points. The token is right here. Li Fan then took off his points token, holding it up high, and smiled at the crowd, his eyes full of provocation. Upon hearing this, everyone was burning with anger, their faces darkening. But despite their anger, they all just exchanged hesitant glances, seemingly unwilling to be the first to stick their neck out. While they hesitated, Li Fan made his move. "Since you're not making a move, I will." As his words faded in the blink of an eye, Li Fan vanished from his spot. This sight terrified all 100 people present, their faces changing drastically. Where did he go? Not good. Where is he? Did he run away? For a moment, a frantic uproar erupted from the group, all searching for Li Fan. But by the time he reappeared in their sight, it was already too late. Because Li Fan was already right in their midst. Shing. Boom. Bang. In an instant within the crowd, Li Fan's amiable smile terrified everyone, and various attack effects went flying everywhere. However, these attacks only served to injure their own allies, posing no threat to Li Fan whatsoever. Instead, Li Fan was like a wolf among sheep, moving with incredible speed. With a kick for each, they were sent flying into the air one after another. When they landed, their points tokens had already fallen into Li Fan's hands. In no time, most of the 100+ people were thrown into disarray, each one bruised and battered. Those in slightly better condition were already scared out of their wits and fleeing. Meanwhile, Li Fan's small cloth pouch was now filled with over 100 points tokens. Tisk, you guys really have so few points. Li Fan began transferring the points. But to his annoyance, their points were pitifully low. If it weren't for the sheer quantity, he wouldn't have bothered transferring them one by one. Li Fan's words brought tears to the eyes of the bruised and battered crowd. Damn it. Of course our points are few. Didn't you rob us all yesterday? Even when harvesting leeks, you should let them grow a bit before cutting. But then again, it wasn't like Li Fan had sought them out this time, they had brought it upon themselves. Now they were truly at a loss for tears. Why did they even provoke Li Fan, whose strength was so terrifying? Meanwhile, in the meeting room, the mentors watching this scene were all stunned. Initially, when they saw a large group going to seek revenge on Li Fan, they thought it would be an interesting spectacle. But when it came to actual combat, it was another one-sided situation. Over 100 people and not one dared to take the lead, only to be utterly defeated by Li Fan 1 against 100. If these people were to enter Beatty, they would be too ashamed to admit they were students of Beatty University. Li Fan's strength is truly off the charts. If it weren't for those sophomore brats, he would have completely ruined this assessment. Indeed, with the way Li Fan is collecting points by the third day, a third of the examinees probably won't have more than 1,000 points. Yeah, he's another Wong Tong. Having Li Fan's strength in this mix is too unfair to the other examinees. By the way, what's the situation with those sophomores now? The mentors discussed, animatedly full of mixed feelings about Li Fan. His presence was indeed affecting the balance of this assessment. The only saving grace now was that this bug, named Li Fan, could be fixed by the sophomores. And speaking of the senior students, at this moment on the outskirts of the dense forest, a massive group of figures could be seen. Damn, finally it's the second day. Finally we can make a move. Get ready. Get ready. Juniors, are you ready to meet your seniors? Damn it. Finally we can do something. Don't any of you steal those 3 S ranks, they're mine. Start early, finish early. Let's go, let's go. Brothers, if you see any pretty junior girls, remember to get their contact info for me. I have a friend who needs a wife. That's right. These figures were precisely the sophomore seniors who had been waiting for a long time. After a day of waiting, they could finally formally enter the dense forest and mountains to spar with the examinees. For them, the wait had been unbearable. And shortly after the seniors entered, wails and screams began to echo from various parts of the secret realm. Senior, please spare us. We really don't have any points. Run. The seniors are here. Senior sister, you're too beautiful for fighting. How about letting us get a 1-minute head start? Run. There are seniors chasing us from behind. Arg. I'll fight you all. Senior, please show mercy. I was just joking. Damn it. I ran into the madman yesterday, and today I run into seniors the moment I open my eyes. What kind of rotten luck is this? The arrival of the sophomore seniors was like wolves entering a flock of sheep, devastating and overwhelming. Many examinees were defeated in an instant, their points reduced to 0. Before long, the dense forest was filled with fear of the senior students. This scene was well within the mentors' expectations. The strength of the sophomores was simply on another level. And this was the time to test the comprehensive abilities of the examinees. In a new environment, full of dangers, cooperation and combat were crucial skills. But the ability to flee, hide, and survive was even more important. Meanwhile, Li Fan had just finished transferring the points from the final token. He remained blissfully unaware of the senior student's intrusion into the examination. Big guy, let's go. Li Fan leaped onto the back of the explosive tiger beast and set off towards the distant mountains. He had already explored most of the dense forest, so this time he decided to venture beyond the mountains, hoping to encounter some of the senior students. Having a mount certainly made a difference. Riding on the tiger's back, feeling the gentle breeze, and taking in the scenery, it felt like a leisurely spring outing, relaxing and carefree. Although he occasionally saw the unsightly scene of examinees fleeing from fierce beasts, crying for help, the journey was still relatively pleasant overall. Before long, he arrived at the foot of the mountain. The slopes were steep, covered with vines and towering trees. An ordinary person would have found it quite a challenge to climb. But for the explosive tiger beast, the king of the mountains, this terrain was as easy as walking on flat ground. In the blink of an eye, they reached the summit. There were quite a few fierce beasts on the mountaintop, but none lasted more than 10 minutes against Li Fan's iron fists. After a quick cleanup, his gaze turned to the other side of the mountain. Beyond the mountain lay another, even more formidable peak. At a glance, it didn't seem like a place many would venture. Just as Li Fan hesitated on whether to press forward, a pillar of fire suddenly shot out from the distance, striking the explosive tiger beast beneath him. Roar! The explosive tiger beast let out a pained cry, its massive body staggering before collapsing lifeless within moments. Li Fan jumped down to inspect the beast and found a gaping hole bored clean through its abdomen. A flicker of anger rose within him. Who was so reckless as to dare attack his mount? Before Li Fan could even search for the culprit revealed himself. Oh, there's a person here. The newcomer was none other than He Wenguang. He had been hunting fierce beasts nearby when he spotted the explosive tiger beast charging in the distance. Without a second thought, he had fired off a cannon blast. He hadn't expected to find someone here. It seemed he had inadvertently stolen their prey. He Wenguang failed to realize that the explosive tiger beast was Li Fan's mount, assuming instead that Li Fan was lying in wait to hunt it himself. Accompanying He Wenguang was another person, someone Li Fan vaguely recognized. In the gymnasium, when Lin Yue and the other 2 S-rank students had first arrived, this person had been the first to greet her. Unfortunately, he had been completely ignored. This person was Wang Xiaoqin. He had come with He Wenguang because their families were old friends and the two had known each other since childhood. With the senior students entering the fray, he had chosen to latch onto He Wenguang. It's Yue. Wang Xiaoqin's eyes widened in shock as he saw Li Fan. His impression of Li Fan was profound. This was the man who had made Lin Yue ignore him and steal all the spotlight. But wasn't Li Fan a special recruit? How was he here? You know him? He Wenguang looked at Wang Xiaoqin, frowning slightly. Wang Xiaoqin's face darkened. Not acquainted, but I've seen him. He's Lin Yue's old friend. Hearing this, He Wenguang recalled some vague memories. It seemed he was indeed that friend from Lin Yue's special recruit area. At the time his mind had been preoccupied with the secret realm, so he hadn't paid much attention. What? Want me to handle it? He Wenguang crossed his arms and spoke nonchalantly, having noticed Wang Xiaoqin's agitation. Wang Xiaoqin waved his hand dismissively and stepped forward. Brother Wenguang, there's no need for you to dirty your hands on this small fry. Though he was puzzled as to how a special recruit like Li Fan had ended up here, he was confident that his own strength was more than enough to deal with Li Fan. Even if he couldn't, He Wenguang was there as backup. In this secret realm, aside from the senior students, he couldn't imagine anyone being a match for He Wenguang. However, as Wang Xiaoqin was stepping forward, a terrifying sonic boom erupted. Li Fan had appeared before He Wenguang at an almost inconceivable speed. He Wenguang's expression drastically changed as he faced Li Fan, feeling as if he were confronting a formidable enemy. This speed, it was absurd. His first instinct was to unleash flames and create distance. But Li Fan had already grabbed him by the collar, and then the slaps came raining down. You like showing off, huh? Want to handle it yourself, huh? Like playing with fire, huh? Dare to kill my mount, huh? You son of a bitch. Li Fan berated him while his slaps sounded like applause. He Wenguang struggled desperately at first, trying to break free, but no matter what he did, he couldn't escape a suffocating sense of helplessness washing over him. Soon He Wenguang's face had swollen into a pig's head. At least half his teeth had been knocked out. He was utterly disheveled. Watching the scene unfold, Wang Xiaoqin's legs trembled violently, paralyzed with fear. His invincible brother Wenguang. How? A title suddenly surfaced in his mind. The Madman. Could Li Fan be that monster, the Madman? He had heard many tales about the Madman recently, but he never imagined it would be Li Fan, nor that his strength could reach such terrifying heights. At this moment he desperately wanted to flee, but his legs betrayed him, weak and uncooperative. He needn't have bothered running anyway, for Li Fan, having knocked He Wenguang unconscious, was already standing before him. You like showing off too, huh? Don't need others to handle it, huh? Li Fan repeated the same treatment. In no time Wang Xiaoqin received a matching makeover. Finally, after Li Fan slapped out Wang Xiaoqin's last front tooth, the anger in his heart began to subside. He absolutely detested people showing off in front of him. Tossing Wang Xiaoqin aside, he began transferring the points from their tokens. Their points were quite substantial, especially He Wenguang's, which amounted to over 20,000. That was to be expected. As an S-rank talent at this stage, having anything less than 20,000 points would be rather embarrassing. And now with this addition, his total points reached over 90,000. Nearby, He Wenguang slowly regained consciousness. The moment he opened his eyes and saw Li Fan still standing before him, he scrambled backward in sheer terror, any semblance of his former prowess completely gone. He had no choice. He was genuinely frightened. He feared Li Fan hadn't had his fill and would drag him up for more punishment. He had also come to realize who Li Fan truly was. Li Fan was definitely the Madman. No need to run, I'm not going to hit you. Next time keep your eyes open. If you ever dare touch my mount again, I won't be so lenient. Li Fan said calmly, then tossed He Wenguang's emptied point token in front of him. He Wenguang felt a deep sense of humiliation, but dared not defy him, hastily stammering, Yes, it won't happen again. Satisfied with the answer, Li Fan didn't linger and turned to leave. With the explosive tiger beast gone, venturing to another mountain seemed impractical. He could only consider returning to the dense forest to try his luck. Only after Li Fan had left did He Wenguang let out a heavy sigh of relief. But after a moment of silence, he couldn't help but scream hysterically at the sky, Damn it! Damn it! How utterly humiliating. He never could have imagined it. That random low-level thug he encountered on the road turned out to be the legendary Madman. He had once envisioned various scenarios of battling the Madman, crushing him, and using that victory to elevate his own reputation further. Yet to his utter shock, he was completely dominated by this Madman from start to finish. Not only was he brutally beaten into a disfigured state, but he also lost his face and his points. His only solace was that the sole witness to this scene was Wang Xiaoqin. As long as he could silence Wang Xiaoqin, this incident shouldn't spread far. Madman, I've got my eyes on you. He Wenguang glared viciously in the direction Li Fan had departed, murderous intent blazing in his eyes. This humiliation he would repay it tenfold if ever given the chance. Meanwhile, in the meeting room, silence prevailed. They had witnessed the entire battle between Li Fan and He Wenguang. It was undoubtedly the most absurd battle they had ever seen. Although Li Fan had struck first, given He Wangwang's strength, shouldn't he have at least put up some resistance? It could only be said that Li Fan's strength was simply too overwhelming. If this was the extent of his combat prowess, then Lin Yue would likely suffer the same fate if she faced him. Their only remaining hope now rested on the senior students. Meanwhile, Li Fan had already sprinted back into the dense forest. Moreover, he had received excellent news from some examinees. The senior students had already begun their sweep through the forest. He hadn't expected them to arrive right after he left. If he'd known, he would have stayed put. What a waste of that explosive tiger beast. Still, trading one explosive tiger beast for roughly 30,000 points wasn't a bad deal. Run! The seniors are catching up. We can't stay here, run. Damn. We ran into the madman again. Scatter! Li Fan was just about to continue forward. Suddenly, he saw several small teams rushing towards him from the opposite direction. They looked utterly terrified, but they brought him good news. Seems like those seniors are just ahead. A slight smile curled on Li Fan's lips as his pace quickened abruptly. With his current points, defeating a few seniors should be more than enough to secure the top spot. He could practically consider taking it easy and waiting for the assessment to end tomorrow. Not far ahead, two youths clad in the uniforms of Beatty Academy were gleefully chasing down the fleeing examinees. Let's slow down a bit, wouldn't want to scare these juniors into wetting themselves. Haha, true. But next time we need to be gentler. If they just run at the sight of us without putting up a fight, it's pretty boring. Oh, look, another little one here. Amidst their banter, they casually knocked down an examinee hiding in a treetop as effortlessly as picking a wild vegetable without a second glance. They hadn't walked much further when they spotted an unusual figure in the clearing ahead. All the other examinees were fleeing. Yet this examinee was choosing to go against the flow, walking straight towards them. And who else could it be but Li Fan? This junior must be lost, one of the youths said with a chuckle. As he spoke, he formed a sword finger with his hand and flicked a sword aura towards Li Fan. He possessed sword talent and was already at a formidable level 35. Though it appeared to be a casual gesture, its power was sufficient to easily slay a level 30 beast. Of course, the assessment rules forbade killing, so his sword aura wasn't aimed at Li Fan's vital points, but rather at his legs. This strike would only temporarily incapacitate Li Fan. If he had healing medicine, he could recover in moments. However, just as they expected Li Fan to be taken down by the sword aura so they could continue their pursuit, Li Fan merely raised his hand, waved it lightly, and extinguished the attack entirely. What? Witnessing this, the sword-talented youth's pupils constricted in shock. He had casually swatted away his sword finger attack. Wasn't his defense just a bit too absurd? The youth beside him was equally stunned. To disperse that sword aura so effortlessly, one would normally need to be at least level 30 and possess a physique-enhancing talent. Anything less would have been impossible. This examinee was unnaturally strong. Could he be one of those 3 S-rank talents? But that didn't make sense. They had done their research before coming. The 3 S-rank talents were an Ice-type Divine Archer and 2 Fire types. None of them had a physique-enhancing talent. After a moment's hesitation, a single name came to mind. The Madman. As far as they knew, the Madman possessed exactly that kind of physique-enhancing talent. That target was originally reserved for Gu Quan. They hadn't expected to run into him first. They exchanged a glance, and a smile gradually crept onto their faces. Don't steal this one, let me have a go at this replica of Senior Wang Tong first. After I beat him, I'll give him some healing medicine, and once he's recovered, you can have your turn. The sword-talented youth spoke up first. The sight of Li Fan swatting away his sword aura had ignited a fierce fighting spirit within him. Hearing this arrangement, the other youth couldn't help but pout. All right, you can have the first go. After they settled it, the sword-talented youth was about to make his move when a sonic boom echoed. In an instant, Li Fan had vanished from his original spot. Before they could react, Li Fan's fist was already at the youth's face. Bang! The youth was sent flying back nearly 100 meters, crashing through a series of massive trees, his face swollen and bruised, barely conscious. But as a level 35 expert, he wouldn't give in so easily. In the blink of an eye, he regained his senses, his expression turning extremely grave as an incredibly fearsome sword intent began to gather around him. Unfortunately, he never got the chance to fight back. Li Fan was already upon him. The next second, Li Fan grabbed him by the collar, and a rain of slaps descended upon his face. Trying to show off, huh? Trying to show off. Well, don't steal this one. First go for you, huh? Li Fan showed no respect for the senior, slapping him until he passed out before finally stopping. Not far away, the other senior, watching the scene, swallowed hard in shock. This madman was terrifyingly strong. Setting everything else aside, his close combat was simply unbeatable. Clenching his teeth, he decided to strike first and launch a sneak attack. His talent was war hammers. He was a natural-born hammer master. Wielding a pair of war hammers, he swung them with immense force, charging straight at Li Fan with a flurry of whooshing sounds. He held nothing back, judging from Li Fan's displayed combat power that he would be in serious trouble if he didn't go all out. Get down! The youth bellowed. In the blink of an eye, he closed the distance to less than 2 meters from Li Fan. This was the guaranteed striking distance he was confident in. He was certain that a single hammer blow would be impossible to withstand even for someone with a physique-enhancing talent like Li Fan. However, just as the hammer was about to connect, Li Fan whipped his head around, raised his hand, and sent the war hammer flying, shattering the youth's hand bones in the process. The searing pain tore a miserable scream from his lips, and a glimmer of fear appeared in his eyes. He couldn't have imagined that Li Fan's physical body was this monstrously strong, and Li Fan's next words sent an even deeper chill down his spine. Senior sneak attacks aren't really encouraged, you know. I almost couldn't hold back my strength just now. He was dumbfounded. This was what it meant to hold back. If Li Fan had used his full force, just how terrifying would it have been? With this level of power, was he really an examinee? Though to be fair, Li Fan had indeed held back. If he had unleashed his full strength, that senior would have been completely shattered. After all, Li Fan's current physical combat capability was already on par with awakened beings of level 50 or 60. As for Li Fan, looking at the wailing senior, he initially considered giving him a flurry of slaps as well, but he quickly dismissed the idea. He merely disliked people showing off in front of him. He had no inherent cruelty. He was about to casually take out a few healing pills to give to the senior. Suddenly his points token vibrated. Looking down, he saw that his points had skyrocketed from over 90,000 to a staggering 370,000, a fourfold increase. Li Fan smiled knowingly. Senior students really were the most effective. However, that smile appeared utterly sinister to the senior lying beside him. The senior's body trembled, and he hastily produced a healing pill from his spatial ring and swallowed it, preparing to flee the scene immediately. But before he could even rise, Li Fan approached him. Senior, next time you want to teach me a lesson, please don't discuss it right in front of me. It's quite rude, and it makes me angry. Out of respect for the points, I won't hit you anymore. But I have a small favor to ask. Could you spread the word and have the other seniors come here? I'll stay right here and wait for them. I don't mean anything else. Oh, I just want to claim the top spot on the points leaderboard. Li Fan said with a gentle smile, his tone remarkably mild. This demeanor was a stark contrast to the killing machine from the battle moments ago. Hearing this, the senior's face darkened, looking extremely unpleasant. Good grief. Wasn't this a bit too arrogant? From the sound of it, was Li Fan planning to challenge all of them single-handedly? Junior, you've got guts. But don't underestimate us seniors. Just you wait. He hoisted the unconscious youth onto his back, and then turned and left the scene. Li Fan said nothing and made no move to stop him. Underestimate? Not at all. If anything, he had overestimated them. He had actually held some expectations for the strength of those two seniors. After all, they were students of North Emperor University and should have possessed the ability to fight above their level. Yet after the exchange, their strength seemed rather ordinary. In the meeting room, the mentors watching the scene were once again rendered speechless. They had never imagined that Li Fan's strength could reach such a terrifying level. Those two sophomores were both above level 35 with B-rank talents. With such strength, they should have been able to effortlessly crush any examinee. Yet in front of Li Fan, they were just like the other examinees, or even the fierce beasts he had faced, utterly unable to put up a fight. This bug called Li Fan didn't seem as easy to fix as they had imagined. Just where is Li Fan's limit? How about we consider having him withdraw early and offer him early admission? That could indeed be considered. If he single-handedly takes down all those sophomores, the subsequent assessments would lose their purpose. Enough, what's the panic? Those two brats are only mid to lower tier among this batch. Li Fan is so arrogant, I think he'll soon pay the price for his youthful hubris. I also think we should wait and see. Isn't Gu Quan here? He's already broken through to level 40. If he makes a move, he should be able to suppress him. Let's continue observing. From awakening his talent to taking the assessment, it's been less than a month, and he can already defeat level 35 talents. This strength is truly terrifying. I'm curious to see where Li Fan's limit really is. The mentors discussed among themselves, sharing their views and concerns about Li Fan. In the end, they decided to continue observing. Meanwhile, following the departure of the two seniors, within just a few hours, Li Fan's deeds and bold words spread throughout the sophomore community. So he managed to defeat both of you. It seems this madman does have some real skill. He does have some ability, but isn't he a bit too arrogant? He wants all of us to go to him. This is outrageous. Where is he? I'll go have a word with him. I'm coming too. Today we'll teach him what it means to respect your seniors. Enough, hasn't Gu Quan already claimed him? Let's not interfere. I don't care who claimed him. I just can't stand this kid's cocky attitude. Li Fan's provocative words undoubtedly stirred up anger among many of the senior students. While some seniors chose to ignore the provocation, many more were eager to teach this junior who didn't know his place a lesson. In an instant, a 10-person squad composed of senior students sped off in the direction where Li Fan was located. However, they hadn't gone far when they ran into Gu Quan. After hearing the whole story, Gu Quan immediately joined the squad. However, there was one condition: he had to be the first to strike. This scene felt somewhat familiar to the mentors watching from their omniscient perspective. But last time it had ended with Li Fan taking on 100 opponents by himself. This time they believed the outcome could not possibly be the same. If it were then, Li Fan's strength would be excessively overpowered. Such a promising talent must be nurtured. Even if it's just a low-tier physical talent, it must be developed. After all, Li Fan might just accomplish the extraordinary feat of rewriting the status of physical-type talents. As for Li Fan, he remained at the site of his previous battle. But he wasn't just standing there idly. He had already set up a campfire, turning the place into a culinary haven. As his body grew stronger, his hunger seemed to come around faster than before. The mountain air is truly refreshing. Before long, a beast leg was roasted to perfection. Li Fan, facing the gentle breeze, feasted with great relish, his spirits utterly buoyant. The assessment would conclude tomorrow. Barring any surprises, he should secure the top spot on the leaderboard and enter Beta University. Once formally enrolled and trivial matters were settled, he would need to hasten his leveling speed. After a day of intense combat and the energy from a pile of beast meat, his level had successfully risen from 10 to 11. This level was far too low compared to other Beta examinees. Fortunately, the Tai secret realm had no level restrictions. But other secret realms likely wouldn't be so lenient. Without sufficient level 1 wouldn't even have the chance to enter. But setting that aside for now, at the very least his level needed to keep pace with Guling. After all, if he couldn't keep up, how could they duo Q together in bliss? Just as Li Fan was lost in thought. From not too far away there was already a commotion. Quan Ji, that kid is up ahead. Let's hope this kid truly has some guts and hasn't mocked us by fleeing early. The arrivals were none other than Gu Quan and 10 other sophomore seniors. The group advanced with an imposing and chilling aura, causing many fierce beasts to flee from a distance. In a short while the group caught a whiff of an enticing meat aroma. This peculiar sight immediately reminded them of that madman. Could it be that this madman was having a barbecue? Was he planning to roast the seniors before chopping them down? At this thought, those already pent up with frustration grew even more furious. This was utterly preposterous. Did he truly take them for mere underlings? They strode forward. Soon enough, Li Fan's figure, feasting with gusto, came into their view. There in an open clearing, Li Fan was patiently sprinkling seasonings onto the remaining piece of meat, his movements extremely graceful, like a world-class barbecue master. That's him. At that moment, the senior who had previously wielded the warhammer and been sent flying by Li Fan's palm suddenly jumped out, pointing at Li Fan and shouting. This time he had brought backup, determined to make Li Fan pay for that palm strike. So it's this guy, eh? How outrageous. He still has the mood to grill meat. Indeed, the madman. He didn't flee, and he's even having a barbecue. Oomph. He's courting death. Hold on, let Quan Ji go first, he's got dibs. The group was furious and noisy, all voicing their desire to teach Li Fan a severe lesson. However, in the end, the chance to strike first fell to Gu Quan. Yet, Gu Quan, who had been loudly demanding to go first the entire journey, was now completely stunned, staring at Li Fan. Because he never expected that this legendary madman would actually be Li Fan. Wasn't Li Fan a D-rank talent? Wasn't he supposed to take the special admission route and get eliminated along the way? How could he be here? And how on earth did Li Fan, a weakling with D-rank talent, manage to sweep through secret realm examinees and brutalize sophomore seniors? A myriad of questions plunged Gu Quan into unprecedented confusion. Could this pig that had ravaged his family's cabbage actually possess such strength? Quan Ji, what's wrong? Quan Ji, are you going or not? If not, I'll go first. Seeing Gu Quan's inaction, the others began to grow anxious. The reminders from the others slowly snapped Gu Quan back to reality. No matter how terrifying Li Fan's talent and abilities were, D-rank body type, when combined, even in the later stages, it still wasn't much different from being useless. He absolutely couldn't allow his cousin to be lured away by someone like this. On the other side, Li Fan had also spotted them, and Li Fan's gaze fell upon Gu Quan first. Li Fan was also quite surprised. He hadn't expected Gu Quan to be among this batch of sophomore seniors. Hello there, cousin. Li Fan greeted Gu Quan with a beaming smile. To be honest, he held no malice towards Gu Quan. On the contrary, he respected him quite a bit. After all, from a different perspective, if he were Gu Quan, he would probably also try to stop Gu Ling from being with some D-rank punk. It was a sign of being responsible for one's family. But despite the lack of hatred, he still had to be taught a lesson. Only then would Gu Quan shut his mouth. Cousin. Wait, Quan Ji, this guy is your cousin. Quan Ji, what the? On the other side, Li Fan's greeting undoubtedly drew everyone's gaze towards Gu Quan. Cousin. Could Li Fan be Gu Quan's cousin? If that were the case, wouldn't Gu Quan have to switch sides? Meanwhile, Gu Quan's face darkened completely. Enough. This guy is no cousin of mine, just a punk who deceived my cousin. He's mine. Gu Quan gritted his teeth and spoke in a low, grave tone. With that, a terrifying blood axe materialized in his hand. His words left the group with strange expressions. They hadn't expected Gu Quan and this madman to have such a connection, given that it seemed only fitting for Gu Quan to make the first move. Li Fan, I won't bully you. For Guling Sake, I'll give you one free move. But after that single move, I will show no mercy. At this moment, Gu Quan's aura surged violently, the blood axe in his hand, emitting waves of bloody mist, making him look like a demon god. Seeing Gu Quan state, the surrounding seniors all wore grave expressions. Gu Quan's aura seemed even more formidable than they had previously known. And by the looks of it, Gu Quan was genuinely enraged, though showing mercy seemed unlikely. Li Fan probably couldn't even withstand a single axe strike. Hearing Gu Quan's words, Li Fan didn't stand on ceremony at all. Cousin is truly kind. He's even giving me a free move. In that case, I'll graciously accept. And for your sake, cousin, I'll treat Guling well in the future. Li Fan said with a smile, his tone exceedingly gentle. Hearing this, the seniors across from them wore even stranger looks. Li Fan's silver tongue was exceptionally adept at drawing hatred. If they were Gu Quan, they'd probably have flames shooting from their eyes. And indeed, Gu Quan was exactly that, trembling with sheer rage. Cut the crap. Gu Quan bellowed, swinging the blood axe as he charged at Li Fan. He had initially planned to give a free move. But Li Fan's mouth was just too irritating. He wasn't going to hold back anymore. He would send Li Fan packing directly. Compared to the two seniors Li Fan had faced before, Gu Quan's strength was far greater and his speed was simply astonishing. To the onlookers, the charging Gu Quan had transformed into a blur of blood impossible to track with the naked eye. This madman is done for. A senior couldn't help but shake his head with a wry smile. Gu Quan was serious. With this strike, Li Fan would likely be incapacitated on the spot. They wouldn't have any chance to act. And all of this was thanks to Li Fan's big mouth. However, the very next second, an unbelievable scene unfolded. Boom. With a thunderous crash, Gu Quan's figure reappeared before everyone, his blood axe cleaving towards Li Fan. Yet it didn't wound him, instead it halted mere centimeters from Li Fan's body. Upon closer inspection, Li Fan had caught the axe blade barehanded, using just 2 fingers of his tiger's mouth. No matter how Gu Quan strained, the axe couldn't advance another inch. Cousin, your strength is indeed commendable, much better than those two earlier. But you're still lacking a bit of finesse, Li Fan said calmly. The next moment, with a casual wave of his hand, Li Fan sent Gu Quan axe and all flying. He then instantly appeared before him and delivered a light slap. Bang, bang, bang. Gu Quan was sent hurtling backward, crashing through several massive trees, his body like a kite with a snapped string. At that moment, a flicker of fear rose uncontrollably in Gu Quan's eyes. The last time he felt such terror was facing Wang Tong. This, Brother Quan, what just happened? Did I see that right? What an incredibly powerful physical body. At the other end, the senior students who had witnessed the scene were all utterly dumbfounded, their faces etched with disbelief. Had Li Fan truly blocked Gu Quan's axe strike with nothing but his bare palm? The speed at which Li Fan then appeared before Gu Quan was so extreme it was as if he had teleported. Was this really just an examinee? Who on earth is the senior here? And just as the group was still reeling in shock, Li Fan had already flashed into their midst. Not good. Damn, so fast. This guy. Everyone's faces changed drastically as they hurriedly unleashed their respective life-saving techniques. Yet evidently, they were still a step too late. Smack, smack, smack. Li Fan's palms struck their faces in rapid succession, sending the entire group flying backward in perfect unison. When they finally managed to get a clear look at each other again, each one had blood trickling from the corners of their mouths and a few shattered teeth. The overwhelming sense of oppression had utterly quashed their will to fight. They scrambled out of the pit and fled in every direction. Mommy, it's a monster. This guy has serious issues. Scatter. Don't bunch up, damn it. Seeing this, Li Fan quickly moved to intercept them. However, since they were all senior students over level 30, once they were determined to flee, they proved quite difficult to catch. In the end, Li Fan only managed to stop 4 senior students along with a still disoriented Gu Quan who remained in the pit. What a pity, but this should probably be enough. According to the rules, for each senior student defeated, one's points would double. Having defeated 5 seniors this time meant his points could be doubled 5 times over. Consequently, on the token that had originally held only around 3700 points, Li Fan's score had now soared to a terrifying 118400 points. With such a monstrous score, he was undoubtedly in first place. The current second place holder Lin Yue had a meager 4000 points, a mere fraction of Li Fan's total. Inside the meeting room, the mentors' expressions were incredibly varied, with sounds of sharp intakes of breath echoing throughout. They had witnessed the entire battle between Li Fan and Gu Quan's group. Li Fan's strength had completely overturned their understanding. They never imagined that even the formidable Gu Quan would be utterly helpless against Li Fan. Where exactly Li Fan's limit lay had undoubtedly become their greatest curiosity. Alright, let's have this Li Fan come out now. He's admitted early. At that moment, an authoritative voice rang out from a middle-aged man with slightly graying temples. He was the inspection chief for this practical assessment. No one stepped forward to refute his words. Given the current situation, If Li Fan were to remain in the secret realm, it would be pointless and would also disrupt the assessment. At the entrance of the Tai's secret realm, several mentors tasked with waiting for examinees to exit were yawning, idly scrolling through phone forums, browsing for any interesting new secret realms that had appeared recently. Suddenly, they received a message. Early teleportation out. Without any hesitation, the mentors assumed an examinee had been severely injured. They immediately began to precisely locate the target within the secret realm. After successfully pinpointing Li Fan's location, a mentor specializing in treatment quickly rushed over ready to perform emergency rescue. But when Li Fan appeared from the teleportation array, the mentors were all taken aback. He wasn't injured. Why was he being teleported out? Li Fan himself was also stunned. He had been about to check on Gu Quan's condition and console his big cousin. But then a familiar teleportation array pattern suddenly appeared beneath his feet. In the blink of an eye, he found himself at the entrance of the secret realm. Was the assessment over? But he didn't see any other examinees around. Or had he been inexplicably eliminated? Just as Li Fan and the mentors were all in a state of bewilderment, a blue vortex materialized beside them. Immediately after Yunxiong stepped out. Frowning, he remained silent for a moment, carefully scrutinizing Li Fan from head to toe before finally speaking. Come with me. With that, Yunxiong turned and re-entered the vortex. Li Fan paused for a second, then, without daring to hesitate further, quickly followed. When Li Fan's vision cleared again, he found himself in a massive lounge. Seated inside were three familiar figures. They were Lu Qilai, Ma Xiao, and Ning Jinjin, who had been in the special recruitment area earlier. Brother Li Fan. Lu Qilai saw Li Fan arrive and immediately stood up to greet him, his expression extremely excited. Finally someone he could talk to. He was about to die of boredom here. Soon, however, Lu Qilai let out a surprised gasp. Brother Li Fan, did you manage to break into the top 100 from within the secret realm? This lounge was the special recruit rest area, accessible only to those who had successfully enrolled. Li Fan being brought here by Yunxiong basically confirmed his advancement. But breaking into the top 100 among all the regular examinees was an incredibly difficult feat. For Li Fan to have advanced was truly astonishing. Li Fan scratched his head and glanced towards Yunxiong. Yunxiong remained silent. Li Fan himself wasn't sure if he had successfully advanced. However, he was certain he had definitely met Yunxiong's requirement of reaching the top 100. Shortly after, Yunxiong looked at Li Fan and spoke. Soon our Northern Emperor University will join forces with the other 9 top-tier martial arts universities to hold a freshman cup. Put in the effort and aim for first place in the individual competition. If you win first place, I will personally give you an extra special reward. Upon hearing this, Li Fan was immediately stunned. The meaning was clear: he had been admitted. Moreover, Yunxiong held him in extremely high regard, already envisioning his performance in the freshman cup. Lu Qilai, Ma Xiao, and Ning Jinjin were also stunned by this. What exactly did Li Fan do inside the secret realm to make Yunxiong say something like that? I'll do my best. Li Fan was taken aback for a moment, then grinned and gave his immediate response. The three of them might not know what Li Fan had done in the secret realm, but Li Fan himself knew perfectly well. It seemed his physical-based talent had finally been recognized by Northern Emperor University. As for the 10 Schools League Freshman Cup, this event was quite well known. He had seen many posts and videos about it on various forums before. Generally speaking, those who could make a name for themselves in this Freshman Cup would inevitably become pillars of the nation and gain great renown across the land. Of course, for Li Fan, such fame was secondary. What mattered most were the resources allocated based on the rankings in the Freshman Cup. As long as he had enough resources, he could continuously grow stronger, drawing ever closer to becoming truly invincible in all aspects. What? Brother Li Fan, did I hear that right? You have over 10 million points. After Yunxiong left, Lu Qilai curiously inquired about Li Fan's points. Upon learning that the number was indeed this terrifying, Lu Qilai was startled into exclaiming aloud. He had no idea how many points one could earn from killing a ferocious beast within the secret realm. But this number is still absolutely terrifying. So, Brother Li Fan, did you fight those 3 S-rank talents? And those senior students from the second year? Except for Lin Yue, I fought them all. I didn't fight many sophomores, just over a dozen. Whoa, damn it. And you still have this many points. What's so strange about that? If I won all the fights, wouldn't I have them? Huh. Lu Qilai continued his inquiries, and each answer he received from Li Fan left him stunned in waves. Unconsciously, Lu Qilai's gaze towards Li Fan was now filled with admiration. A D-rank talent brutally beating S-rank talents, and even defeating senior students across grades. No wonder Yunxiong had held Li Fan in such high regard earlier, and had even been teleported out ahead of time. It turned out Li Fan had been on a rampage inside. Their conversation gradually drew the attention of Ma Xiao and Ning Jinjin nearby. The two were usually taciturn. Earlier, while with Lu Qilai, they hadn't spoken a word to him. But after hearing about Li Fan's achievements, they couldn't help but step forward and ask some questions about Li Fan's experiences in the secret realm. As Li Fan explained back and forth. The two gradually became somewhat convinced by Li Fan's terrifying combat prowess. For a few moments, they even suspected Li Fan might be bragging. But recalling Yin Xiong's earlier words, that suspicion was mostly reduced to a minimum. While Lu Qilai and the other two asked Li Fan about the secret realm, Li Fan also inquired about the special recruitment zone. From the conversation, he learned that they were all the special recruits Beatty University had admitted this year. In other words, the large group of people behind them had all been eliminated. It had to be said Beatty's special recruitment standards were indeed quite high. Time passed to the afternoon. Li Fan first returned to the hotel. He had originally planned to contact Gu Ling, invite her out for dinner, and inform her of his admission. But from the news he learned that almost all prestigious universities this year had adopted practical assessments. Qingxiong University was no exception. At this hour Gu Ling was probably still fighting in the secret realm. So Li Fan could only settle for a simple dinner at the hotel. After dinner Li Fan was still full of energy, so he immediately began his training. These past few days he had been accumulating points in the secret realm and hadn't had a proper workout. Although his stats had seen slight improvements due to leveling up and indirect exercise during travel and combat, that pace was still not as fast as a dedicated training session. Even though he had successfully enrolled at Beatty University, he couldn't afford to slack off on improving his strength. In the blink of an eye, it was early morning the next day. Li Fan stretched, washed up quickly, and prepared to head to the Beatty University admissions lounge. Today was the final day of the assessment, and also the day Beatty University would finalize the freshmen's results. Many matters regarding enrollment and campus affairs would be explained today. On the way, Li Fan opened his attribute panel. Name Li Fan. Level LV 11, 535, 030, 0000. Strength 12,932. Defense 12,309. Spirit 11,320 inch. Compared to a few days ago, his current stats had once again seen an increase. For an awakener who had just reached level 11, these numbers were already quite outrageous. Of course, for Li Fan this was still just the beginning. Upon arriving at the lounge, Lu Qilai, Ma Xiu, and Ning Jinjin were already there. Perhaps due to yesterday's conversation, aside from Lu Qilai, Ma Xiu, and Ning Jinjin also took the initiative to greet Li Fan with very positive attitudes, seemingly treating him as a friend. In 2 hours the assessment for the regular students will be over. Then the freshman list will be officially confirmed and our dormitories will be assigned. I heard that at Beatty the dorm areas for special recruits and regular students are different. Apparently we get our own standalone villas with excellent conditions. Lu Qilai said this with a hint of anticipation on his face. Upon hearing this, Ma Xiu and Ning Jinjin's eyes also lit up. For people like them who preferred solitude, a standalone dormitory was absolutely perfect. Li Fan also nodded, feeling it was quite good. He often needed to train, and being in a shared dormitory would be quite inconvenient. Besides, he was someone in a relationship. There would always be times when his partner came to visit. A standalone villa was definitely better. While the four of them were chatting, the flow of people in the lounge began to increase, mostly instructors. It seemed the assessment results for the regular students were about to be released. Unknowingly, 2 hours passed quietly. At that moment, a majestic voice resounded over the Tai secret realm. Assessment concluded. In 30 seconds, the secret realm's exit will open. All examinees please leave promptly. Hearing this voice, the examinees inside the secret realm had varied expressions. Some were excited, some worried, some unwilling. Regardless, the assessment was over. Whether they could make it into the top 1,200 would be known once they got out. Emerging alongside the examinees were dozens of sophomore-senior students. Yet there weren't many smiles to be seen on these seniors' faces. Because not only had they failed to find and beat up those 3 S-rank talents, they had instead been taken down one after another by a single examinee, 10 of them in a row, including the formidable Gu Quan. If such a record were to spread among the sophomore class, it would surely be a source of ridicule. Soon everyone arrived outside the secret realm. As before, after a teleportation array, the group instantly returned to the sports stadium where they had started. It could be seen that in the special recruitment zone stood Li Fan and his 3 companions. Damn, these 4 got admitted. Damn, forget the handsome one, but those other 3 ugly mugs got in too. Wow, this year's special recruits for Beatty are actually these 4. Clearly many examinees were extremely surprised by the situation of Li Fan and the others. Unlike them, the regular examinees, the fact that the special recruits hadn't left by this time meant they had already been admitted. And before the assessment, they completely didn't think these people could get in. Li Fan. Among the examinees, Lin Yue was even more astonished seeing Li Fan's figure in the special recruitment zone. Li Fan had actually been admitted. Could it be that even at university her biggest rival would still be Li Fan? On the other side, He Wenguang and Di Yin showed no surprise at Li Fan's appearance at all. Especially He Wenguang. He had been beaten black and blue by Li Fan in the secret realm. If not for the good healing medicine he carried, he probably wouldn't be able to show his face now. And equally unsurprised were those examinees whose points Li Fan had snatched. This madman had been their nightmare in there. Just as everyone was discussing animatedly, the figures of the instructors appeared again. Yunxiong stood at a high point and spoke in a deep voice, taking charge. Everyone quiet down. After 3 days of assessment, your final results are out. The rules were already clearly stated. The top 1,200 are admitted, the rest are all eliminated. Next, everyone please look at the ranking list.